공동 창업자 중 한 명인 이현입니다. 스파크랩 첫 번째 데모데이에 오신 것을 환영합니다. 스파크랩은 창업자들을 도와주기 위해서 창업자들이 만든 스타트업 인큐베이터 엑셀러레이터입니다. 저희 그 스파크랩의 그 운영을 책임지고 있는 제너럴 파트너들이 5명인데요. 다들 그 중에 3명은 한국 밖에 싱가포르가 실리콘밸리에 있고요. 그 나머지 2명은 한국에서 반, 그 다음에 해외에서 반을 생활을 하고 있습니다. 저희들도 다 창업을 해봤고요. 각기 그 기업들을 운영하고 있습니다. 뭐 실패도 해봤고 이제 성공도 해봤고요. 근데 저희들이 여기 한국에서 스타트업 인큐베이터 엑셀을 시작하게 된 이유는 한국에서 해외로 나가고자 하는 분들을 도와주기 위해서 만들었습니다. 그래서 특히 저희는 해외로 나가고자 하는 그 스타트업들의 포커싱을 하고 있습니다. 그래서 저희 그 웹사이트에 들어오시면 SparkLabs.co.kr 저희들이 갖고 있는 저희들이 모시고 있는 고문들과 그 멘토들의 리스트가 나와 있는데요. 보시면은 아시다시피 거의 대부분의 멘토와 어드바이저들이 해외에 특히 미국에 포커싱이 되는 것을 아실 수 있겠고요. 지금 점점 미국뿐만이 아니라 일본, 중국, 그 다음에 동남아시아에도 점점 추가되고 있는 그런 상황입니다. 잠깐 설명을 드리자면은 저만 해도 미국에서 호스트웨이라는 회사를 1998년에 창업을 해서 지금까지 경영을 하고 있고요. 그래서 어떻게 보면은 저 같은 경우도 미국에서 사업하는 게 더 익숙해져 있는 상황입니다. 오늘의 주인공들은 당연히 스파크랩 1기생, First Class를 졸업하는 6개의 스타트업들이 되겠고요. 5개 회사가 오늘 발표를 할 예정입니다. 한 개 회사는 지금 내고를 지금 벌써 들어가가지고 약간 민감한 상황이기 때문에 발표를 드리기 못하게 됐는데요. 이 6개 회사가 10주 동안 저희와 몸을 섞고 정말 많은 노력과 열정을 쏟아부어가지고 한 결과를 오늘 발표하게 되었습니다. 물론 몇몇 회사들은 이 10주 훨씬 전부터 여기 오늘 발표하는 것 외에 솔루션을 개발을 하고 있었고요. 그래서 많은 관심과 격려를 부탁드립니다. 이들은 또 이제부터 또 새로운 시작이겠죠. 앞으로도 많은 도움과 관심을 가져주시기를 부탁드립니다. 그래서 이들의 용기와 열정과 노력, 저희 스파크랩뿐만이 아니라 여기 계신 모든 분들의 헌신적 도움이 필요로 합니다. It takes a village to raise a child, right? So that's true with startups as well. 혼자의 힘이 중요하지만 또 그 사람들이 노력을 하는 것만큼 또 옆에 있는 사람들이 도와주는 게 아주 중요하다고 생각합니다. 그럼 왜 도와줘야 되느냐? 그 이유는 간단합니다. 그것이 옳은 일이기 때문이죠. 어저께 저녁을 같이 먹은 여기 오늘 오후에 패널 디스커션 해줄 로버트 디밀로라는 사람이 한 얘기가 있습니다. 저는 아주 인상 깊게 들었는데요. 실리콘밸리가 하는 이런 말이 있습니다. Pay forward. 그러니까 받은 만큼 다시 돌려주는데 그거를 갖다가 내가 받은 다음에 주는 게 아니라 먼저 도움을 주고 그 나중에 받는 거죠. 근데 그거를 하는 이유가 뭐냐? 그건 옳기 때문입니다. 왜 실리콘밸리에서는 스타트업들이 잘 일어나고 잘 성공을 하느냐? 그런 분위기가 조성이 돼 있고 그런 걸 하기 때문이죠. 그리고 또 도움을 준다는 거는 내가 다 성공하고 난 다음에 도움을 주는 게 아니라 그때 도움을 주는 것도 하나의 버릇입니다. 그렇기 때문에 내가 꼭 성공한 다음에 돈을 주는 게 아니라 내 주위에서 나의 도움이 필요한 사람들이라면 꼭 돈이 아니고 나의 knowledge나 아니면 나의 인적 자원을 갖다가 제공하는 것도 도움이기 때문에 그런 습관을 들이는 게 굉장히 중요하다고 생각합니다. 그리고 오늘 오전에는 이렇게 우리 5개 회사의 데모데이 발표가 있겠고요. 점심 이후에는 오늘 오후 프로그램은 미국 실리콘밸리 쪽하고 이제 웨스트 쪽에서 온 꽉 찬 이야기를 해주실 분들 모시고 패널 디스커션이 있습니다. 그리고 그 공개 인터뷰를 진행을 하는데요. 우선 그 패널 디스커션은 그 케이지, 미국에서 아주 그 성공한 그리고 아주 성공적으로 일을 하고 있는 그 필름 프로듀서와 그 이쪽 그 엔터테인먼트 쪽 인사이트 그분과 또 로버트 디 밀러라고 그 지금 리비전 TV의 CTO로 있죠. 그분도 여러 그 회사를 갖다가 벌써 스타트업을 했었고 지금은 리비전 TV라는 미국에서 제일 큰 그 인터넷 방송국을 갖다가 하고 있는 사람인데 그 리비전 TV 같은 경우는 벌써 지금 한 300 million video views 그게 한 6천억인가요? 그리고 금년 말까지 아마 1 billion video views, not page views, video views까지 간다는 그 예측을 하고 있는데 그 두 분을 모시고 그 온라인 엔터테인먼트에 대한 미래라는 주제를 갖고 그 패널 디스커션을 하고 그 패널 디스커션에 마더레이션을 갖다가 저희 캡컨치에서 오신 그 캐트린 수 리포터 분이 해주시겠습니다. 그 다음에 그 공개 인터뷰는 Jonathan Tail of General Catalyst가 같이 하실 텐데요. 아마 굉장히 궁금한 점들을 이분한테 들을 수 있을 것 같은데 이분이 그 제너럴 캐럴리스트 전에 있던 회사에서 인스타그램과 트위터 같은 초기 그 투자를 이끄는 분이고요. 그리고 지금도 제너럴 캐럴리스트에서 뭐 스냅챗이라든지 여러 가지 지금 주목을 받고 있는 스타트업에 그 투자를 하고 또 관리를 하고 있는 분이시기 때문에 지금 아주 실리콘밸리에서 주목을 받고 계시는 분이신데 어저께 여기 그 샌프란시스코에서 도착하셔서 오늘 공개 인터뷰를 갖다가 진행을 하셨습니다. 여기 뭐 투자분들도 많으시고 그 다음에 그 프레스에서도 많이 오시고 있는데 여기에 계신 그 스타트업을 하시는 분들에게 부탁드리고 싶은 말이 있습니다. 여러분 해외로 눈을 돌리십시오. 기회는 정말 많습니다. 저희 아버님들은 교과서에서만 배운 영어와 검은 양복에 하얀 양말을 신고도 해외를 뚫으셨습니다. 우리는 더 좋은 환경에서 이렇게 배우고 많은 것을 많은 혜택을 받고 있는데요. 무엇을 못하겠습니까? 여러분의 열정과 노력과 그 다음에 끈기, 그 다음에 여러 가지 그 하시는 일들에 대한 것을 저희 그 스파크랩의 자금과 인적 네트워크와 노하우를 갖다가 한 포대에 담아서 뭔가 큰 일을 해보실 생각이 있으십니까? 만약에 관심이 있으시면은 이번 4월달에 시작하는 저희 2기 세컨드 클래스에 저희 웹사이트에 오셔서 그 애플리케이션을 넣으실 거를 부탁을 드립니다. 그럼 지금부터 데모를 시작하겠습니다. 힘찬 박수로 부탁드립니다. 감사합니다. 데모를 시작하기 전에 I forgot something. I want to invite Jay up. 우리 그 SparkLab의 제너럴 파트너 중에 한 명인 제이가 싱가포르에서 왔거든요. 그래서 또 그 SparkLab을 또 대표해서 자기의 생각을 갖다가 짧은 멘트를 해주시겠습니다. 이제.
Thank you very much, Hanju, and welcome everybody to SparkLabs Demo Day. I just wanted to say a couple of things. I'm very happy at Hanju and Bernard and Jimmy's invitation to join SparkLabs as a general partner. This is a new experience for us, coming directly to Korea and working at an earlier level with companies as they grow. By way of history, we're gentlemen that work in finance for the last 20 years, and we find investments for the professional investment community in Singapore and in Hong Kong. We also work with the Chinese investment community, and we look to work with select families and corporates in places like Indonesia and, of course, Europe and the US, but we have an Asian focus. So over the last 8 years, we find deals for the professional investment community and invest ourselves as a group called Pacific Advisors, and we bring the deal to closure many times privately, but other times on the stock exchanges of Hong Kong or Singapore. In this case, and via SparkLabs, we're looking to get involved with some excellent companies in Korea specifically, in the tech space at an earlier stage, because there is a lot of liquidity in today's world. Given the recent events over the last 5 years, the credit crisis, that capital is very cautious. So they really increasingly want the best companies. And we realize with a situation like SparkLabs, we have the opportunity to come to Korea, to have many of the great companies that are in Korea get screened professionally by SparkLabs and to join that screening process, and therefore be able to bring our investors in this giant pool of investment capital the best possible companies that we can become attached to and associated with, both from a coaching standpoint, from an investment standpoint, and from an overall nurturing standpoint. So we're very excited to be part of that. We congratulate all of you who are already involved with SparkLabs and who are also involving yourself with us here today on Demo Day, and we look forward to working with the companies going forward.
Okay. All right, so now for the main show, 드디어 주인공이 등장하기 시작했습니다. 예, 감사합니다. 다시 한번 또 뜨거운 박수로 완전 격려를 부탁드립니다.
Thank you, Hanju. Thank you, Jay. My name is David Ju. I'm COO and a co-founder of Norie. We are an education technology company with an adaptive learning solution for mathematics. Education stands out as the last holdout of the non-digital world, or the digital revolution. However, even education can't resist this change forever. And we're finally seeing a fundamental shift in the industry as technology is being introduced into learning. Norie's goal, therefore, is to utilize our technology in order to provide a personalized learning experience for each individual student. Although this picture may be from 1909, what it depicts actually isn't outdated. If you're a parent and you go into your student's classroom, the traditional model of a teacher standing in front of his or her class teaching really hasn't changed. The only thing that may have changed is the blackboard turned into a whiteboard, and maybe you're going to Google instead of a textbook to find out the quadratic equation. However, as technology is introduced into the classroom, what we can do is move away from this one-size-fits-all model to one where we can actually personalize learning for each individual student. From our experiences having a hagwon, or a math academy here in Korea, what's been reinforced in us as we've taught over 3,500 students is that the best way to understand why a student gets a question wrong or what a student doesn't know is for you to stand over, watch that student solve the problem, and in the process say, wait, Jimmy, you're not using zero product property correctly. You should actually use it in this way. But doing that for every student and for every problem isn't feasible. So what we went ahead and did was we digitalized that process, and hence Norie was born. We built Norie on 3 product pillars. The first is assessment. We need to know at a very granular level what a student knows and doesn't know, and why a student doesn't know it. And the way that our technology works is we digitalize individual math concepts. Concepts like least common multiple, or quadratic factorization, or even the recognition that a pizza is a circle. We took these digitalized math concepts and then interlinked them with one another to create essentially a 3-dimensional matrix of math concepts. This matrix allows us to take any math question, break it down into its individual components, and ascertain the student's mastery on each of those components. We then can take that data and create a personalized learning path tailored for that individual's strengths and weaknesses. And lastly, we've added significant UX enhancements and gamification elements to our product to engage students with Norie and therefore with learning. But the best way for me to actually describe our product is for me to demo it for you. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So as you can see, the first thing that you'll notice is the gamification and the UX enhancements. The product looks and feels like a game. It moves like a game. And so it's engaging to the student. But one of the things that I want to stress is that the product is not a game. It is an educational tool. We just released our open beta for Algebra 1, which includes the entire Algebra 1 curriculum from Chapter 1 down to Chapter 12. And it's aligned with US Common Core State Standards. But the key to the product is our technology, so let me jump into a question so I can show you how our technology works. So we have this question, x over 2 plus 2/3 equals 2. I think everyone here, except for myself, can probably do this in your head. And if you can do that, then we give you a math palette for you to do that. But the idea for Norie is to walk the students through the question, to help them along, and in that process, understand what does a student know and not know. So we have this walk me through button, and the first step in answering this question is, what is the least common multiple of 2 and 3? The least common multiple of 2 and 3 is 6. So now we know that the student understands least common multiple. Let's say, for example, the student answers the next part of the question, which is taking that 6 and multiplying it across the equation and answers it in this way. Now what our algorithm is doing is it's ascertaining the student's mastery on this individual concept. And the way that we're doing that is we're taking into account the amount of time the student takes to answer the question. How many tries does the student take? Does the student look at a video concept on multiplication property equality? And I won't subject you to watching the video. But we've actually created a video for each individual concept necessary to answer all the questions within Algebra 1. However, if the student continues to answer it in this way, what we do is we show them how they should have answered the question, what the correct answer was, but most importantly, we now know that the student got this question wrong because they didn't understand multiplication property equality. And from that data, we can then create that personalized review for that individual student. So the product will be offered as a direct-to-consumer product or one that can be used in the classroom. In the home, students can use our product as supplemental, test prep, or for those students that are having trouble, as remedial aid, or for those students actually doing well, as a means for them to actually move forward ahead of the class. In the classroom, teachers will have access to Norie's dashboard, and the dashboard will allow teachers to assign homework, will allow teachers to monitor individual students, and also monitor how the entire class is doing. Why that's important is because that data can help impact the teacher's actual lesson plans. For example, if you're a teacher and you're teaching graphing quadratic functions, and students are having trouble with y-intercept, then as part of your lesson plan, you can then go ahead and include y-intercepts for linear functions as part of your review. As I mentioned, our product is out in open beta for Algebra 1. Pre-algebra will come very soon thereafter. And we'll finish the core U.S. high school math curriculum, which includes geometry and algebra 2, by the beginning of 2014. Our goal then is to complete the entire high school math curriculum and then localize that across different regions, China, Japan, obviously Korea, and then also create a Spanish language program as well. We then want to take our technology of digitalizing individual concepts and linking them together into other STEM curriculums, STEM being science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, things like biology, chemistry, or physics. Education is changing, and technology is having a really big impact on that change. However, educating our students is a precious responsibility. So we can't use technology just for technology's sake. Norie's goal is to use our patented technology in order to personalize education for each individual student in order to have a significant positive impact on their outcome. We're looking for strategic and distribution channel partners along with beta users. If you like what you've seen so far, go to www.norie.com and sign up and use our product. Thank you.
새로운 기록의 시작, 퍼스널 스마트 저널 스텝을 소개해드리겠습니다. 저는 발표를 맡은 위플래닛의 대표 조덕기입니다. 반갑습니다. 사람들은 아주 오래전부터 기록을 남겨왔습니다. 후대에 남길 만한 의미 있는 기록들도 있었지만 사실 그 대부분은 그 시대를 살았던 사람들의 아주 사소한 일상들이었습니다. 일상을 기록하고자 하는 사람들의 욕구는 지금 이 순간도 달라지지 않았다고 생각합니다. 하지만 기록에 대한 환경들은 분명히 달라졌죠. 스마트폰의 보급률이 높아졌고 우리의 편리한 기록을 도와줄 수 있는 다양한 서비스들이 지금 이 순간에도 개발되고 있습니다. 자, 여기서 여러분들께 질문 하나 드릴게요. 스파클랩스 데모데이를 찾아주신 바로 이 순간을 기록하신다면 과연 어떤 방식으로, 어떤 서비스를 이용해서 기록을 남기시겠습니까? 페이스북, 에버노트, 또는 캘린더까지 아마 굉장히 많은 서비스들이 여러분들 머릿속을 스쳐 지나갈 겁니다. 그만큼 우리는 기록을 남기기에 앞서 어떤 방식으로 어떤 서비스를 사용해서 기록을 남길지 고민해야만 했습니다. 우리는 일상을 기록할 수 있는 단 하나의 서비스를 갖고 있지 못합니다. 왜 그럴까요? 그건 아마도 페이스북을 포함해서 우리가 사용하고 있는 대부분의 서비스들이 우리의 굉장히 특별하고 중요한 순간만을 기록하고 또 공유하라고 강요했기 때문일 겁니다. 하지만 우리의 일상들은 매우 사소하고 때로는 반복적인 행동들로 가득하죠. 커피를 마시고 친구들과 대화를 하고 산책을 하는 그런 일상들 말이죠. 하지만 이런 일상들이 과연 충분히 기록되고 있을까요? 아마 여기 앉아 계신 분들이라면 분명히 다이어리 앱 한두 번쯤 받아보시고 며칠 기록하시다가 포기했던 경험들이 있을 겁니다. 그건 아마도 기록을 위해서 드려야 되는 노력보다 기록을 통해서 얻을 수 있는 가치가 매우 낮았기 때문이겠죠. 아무리 사소한 기록을 남기더라도 우리는 이 작은 스마트폰 화면 속에서 텍스트를 타이핑하거나 아니면 정확한 태그를 달아야 됩니다. 기록된 정보를 확인하기 위해서는 검색을 하거나 또는 시간 순서대로 배열된 타임라인을 한참 동안이나 뒤적거려야 합니다. 아침에 일어나서 아메리카노를 한 잔 마셨다라고 하는 사소한 기록을 남기기에는 이 모든 노력들이 너무 컸던 거죠. 그래서 저희는 기록의 패러다임을 바꿔보려고 합니다. 단 몇 번의 클릭으로 지금 이 순간을 기록할 수 있고 기록된 정보를 그냥 그대로 보여주는 것이 아니라 사용자들에게 유의미한 정보들을 제공하고 뻔한 인사이트를 제공할 수 있다는 말이죠. 그것이 저희가 생각하는 기록의 새로운 패러다임입니다. 이러한 생각들을 담아서 퍼스널 스마트 저널 스텝은 세 가지 특징을 갖게 되었습니다. 첫 번째는 텍스트를 타이핑하는 것이 아니라 사용자들의 상황에 맞게 적절하게 추천된 아이콘을 클릭하여 일상을 기록합니다. 그리고 그 기록된 일상들은 간단한 글과 숫자 그리고 그림으로 구성된 인포그래픽스를 통해서 보다 직관적으로 지나간 과거를 돌아볼 수 있습니다. 여기서 한 걸음 더 나아가서 사용자들의 생활 패턴 그리고 기록의 패턴들을 아주 간단하게 분석해서 사용자들이 필요로 하는 정보 그리고 사용자들에게 도움이 될 수 있는 생활의 팁들을 제공하려고 합니다. 스텝은 그 자체로 굉장히 훌륭한 기록의 도구이지만 사용자들이 이미 익숙하게 사용하고 있는 다양한 기록의 도구들을 통합할 생각입니다. 스텝을 통해서 흩어진 사용자들의 기록들이 모아지고 또 분석되고 시각화되어서 사용자들에게 그 기록의 가치를 더해서 더 높은 가치를 사용자들에게 돌려주고자 합니다. 자, 그럼 지금 스텝을 처음으로 공개하도록 하겠습니다. 앞서 말씀드렸듯이 스텝은 그 어떤 서비스보다도 반복적이고 사소한 일상을 편리하게 기록할 수 있도록 설계되었습니다. 아까 사례를 들 때 계속 커피를 마신다는 얘기를 했으니까요. 계속 커피 사례로 한번 가보겠습니다. 저는 오늘 아침에 일어나서 이곳으로 오기 전에 아메리카노를 한 잔 마셨습니다. 한번 기록해보죠. 저 위쪽에 있는 액티비티 버튼을 누르시면 제가 최근에 자주 했던 행동들 또는 자주 할 거라고 예상되는 행동들이 추천되어서 나와집니다. 돌려볼 수 있고요. 이 중에서 제가 원하는 아이콘 하나 클릭하면 하면 됩니다. 요 위에 아메리카노가 보이네요. 아메리카노를 클릭하고 완료 버튼을 누르면 이것으로서 하나의 기록이 완성되었습니다. 그렇다면 이런 반복적이고 일상적인 기록이 아니라 좀 더 새로운 기록이라면 어떨까요? 새로운 행동들이라면 또 어떨까요? 그건 아마도 제가 새로운 장소를 방문했을 때일 겁니다. 다시 기록해보죠. 이번에는 그 상단에 위치한 플레이스 버튼을 한번 눌러보겠습니다. 불러진 장소 정보 속에서 저는 지금 코엑스 컨퍼런스 룸에 있기 때문에 첫 번째 있는 아이콘을 클릭하겠습니다. 아까와 마찬가지로 똑같은 아이콘들이 추천되었지만 그 내용은 분명히 달라졌습니다. 이 장소에서 제가 할 수 있는 행동들이 추천되어 나가신 거죠. 저는 스파클랩스 데모데이에 참석하고 있고 지금 이 자리에서 프레젠테이션을 하고 있기 때문에 스파클랩스 데모데이와 프레젠테이션을 눌러서 기록을 완료할 수가 있습니다. 반복적인 일상이든 또는 새로운 장소를 방문할 때 벌어지는 새로운 행동들이든 단 몇 번의 클릭으로 일상을 기록하도록 만들었습니다. 이뿐만 아닙니다. 앞서 말씀드렸듯이 사용자들이 이미 익숙하게 사용하고 있는 다양한 기록의 도구들을 스텝에서 통합합니다. 캘린더의 예를 한번 들어보죠. 저는 오늘 이 프레젠테이션을 아주 오래전에 캘린더에 기록해 놓았습니다. 이런 게 떴네요. 제가 구글 캘린더에 적어놓은 스파클랩스에 대한 기록이었습니다. 저는 이 순간 스파클랩스에서 데모데이 때 프레젠테이션을 하고 있기 때문에 여기서 예스 버튼만 누르면 캘린더에 기록되었던 저의 기록이 스텝의 기록으로 전환될 수 있었습니다. 이렇게 차곡차곡 기록된 사용자들의 정보는 간단한 그림으로 보여집니다. 제가 가장 최근에 많이 했던 행동들이 어떤 행동이고 자주 만났던 사람들은 어떤 사람이고 또 어떤 장소를 자주 방문했으며 실제로 어느 정도의 거리를 이동했는지 이러한 내용들이 사용자들이 한눈에 볼 수 있는 간단한 인포그래픽스 형태로 제공이 됩니다. 좀 더 구체적인 정보를 보고 싶다면 하단에 나와 있는 제가 자주 했던 행동들 중에 하나를 골라보면 됩니다. 저는 아메리카노를 40번 이상 마셨고요. 보통 커피를 마실 때는 일을 하면서 마셨습니다. 어떤 장소에서 마셨는지 또 어떤 친구들과 마셨는지 마시면서 어떤 기록들을 남겼는지 확인할 수 있습니다. 여기까지가 스텝이 가지고 있는 두 가지 중요한 기능들에 대해서 설명드렸습니다. 가장 쉽게 남기고 남겨진 기록들을 일목요연하게 한눈에 돌아볼 수 있도록 정리하였습니다. 그리고 지금부터 소개드릴 내용들은 앞으로 사용자가 늘어나고 실제로 사용자 기록들이 늘어나면서 차근차근 하나씩 제공될 수 있는 기능들입니다. 저는 친구들을 만나면 아주 가끔씩 와인을 마시기도 합니다. 아까 아메리카노를 기록했던 것처럼 와인을 한번 기록해 보겠습니다. 하단부에 보시면 몬테스 알파라는 와인이 있네요. 몬테스 알파를 누르고 던 버튼을 누르면 아까처럼 하나의 기록이 완성됩니다. 하지만 달라진 점이 하나 있죠. 기록이 끝나고 난 다음에 아주 자그마한 팝업이 떴습니다. 저는 굉장히 일상적으로 몬테스 알파라고 하는 하나의 와인을 늘 마시는 사람이었다고 한다면 몬테스 알파를 자주 마시는 사람들이 다른 어떤 와인을 좋아하는지 간단한 팁으로서 설명해 줄 수 있습니다. 늘 반복적인 행동들, 늘 같은 행동을 하는 사람들에게 어쩌면 새로운 경험을 할 수 있는 아주 작은 팁이 될 수 있겠죠. 그러면 기록했던 내용들을 한번 살펴보겠습니다. 와인을 마셨다는 기록이고요. 스파클랩스에서 프레젠테이션을 했고 그리고 아침에 커피를 마셨습니다. 커피를 마셨고요. 그러면서 여기 돼지 그림이 보이시죠? 지난 한 달간 제가 스텝이라는 서비스를 사용하면서 저의 기록의 패턴 그리고 생활의 패턴을 가지고 스텝이 저에게 전달해준 메시지입니다. 위에 써있는 글을 한마디로 요약해보자면 운동 좀 했으면 좋겠다라는 얘기입니다. 저는 지난 한 달간 운동을 한 번도 기록하지 않았기 때문이죠. 자, 그럼 여기서 이런 메시지를 받은 저는 이런 생각을 하게 됩니다. 오케이, 운동하는 거 좋은데 도대체 어떤 운동을 어디에서 어떻게 시작하는 게 좋을까? 라는 생각들을 도와줄 수 있는 스텝의 정보들을 제공합니다. 예를 들면 이런 것들이죠. 스텝을 사용하는 전체 사용자들은 이런 운동들을 즐기고 있다. 사이클을 좋아한다고 나오네요. 그러면 사이클을 좋아하는 사람들은 서울에서 어디서 사이클을 타고 어떤 요일에 사이클을 타고 또 어떤 브랜드의 사이클을 좋아하는지 이런 것들을 스텝 전체 사용자들의 기록을 분석해서 사용자들에게 더 나은 가치로 제공할 수 있다고 생각합니다. 스텝은 가장 간단한 기록의 방식으로서 출발하였습니다. 하지만 기록이 기록 그 자체로 머무는 것이 아니라 사용자들의 더 큰 가치로 돌아갈 수 있도록 설계되었습니다. 다시 돌아가 보겠습니다. 스텝의 시작과 그리고 저희가 추구하고 있는 미래에 대해서 간략하게 설명드리면서 발표를 정리해 보도록 하겠습니다. 저는 그렇게 생각했습니다. 아메리카노를 한 잔 마셨다라고 하는 그 사소한 기록은 사실 기록으로서 큰 가치를 받기 어렵습니다. 하지만 그러한 사소한 기록들이 그리고 일상의 기록들이 쌓여서 적절하게 정리되고 또 분석될 수 있다면 그 정보들이, 그 데이터들이 갖는 가치는 상상을 초월할 수 있다라고 저희는 믿었습니다. 전혀 새로운 정보 그리고 개인화된 정보의 분석 이것이 스텝이 추구하는 미래의 모습이자 저희가 생각하는 비즈니스 모델의 출발입니다. 스텝은 아주 열정적인 7명의 팀원들과 함께하고 있습니다. 기록에 대한 사람들의 아주 오래된 욕구, 그 욕구를 저희의 방식대로 아주 스마트하게 바꿨습니다. 이제 여러분들께서 하실 일은 애플 앱스토어에 들어가셔서 스텝, STEP를 검색하시거나 아니면 스텝 스마트를 검색하시면 됩니다. 다운로드 받아주시고요. 오늘 이 순간부터 새로운 기록을 경험해 보셨으면 좋겠습니다. 퍼스널 스마트 저널 스텝 소개를 마치겠습니다. 감사합니다.
안녕하세요. My name is Sejun Ra, and we are SparkLabs. At SparkLabs, we build big data solutions, and we make them the most efficient way. Now, to explain what that means, let me share a story. Steve Jobs once said that the computer is the bicycle of the mind. Now, he said this after reading an article that did a test about locomotive efficiency. And the test analyzed locomotive efficiencies between multiple animals versus a man on a bicycle. And that man on the bicycle blew away everything. And like that bicycle is enabled man to be the most efficient animal on the planet. We enable companies to take data from source to insight in the fastest and most efficient way. Now, data is growing leaps and bounds. As you can see, it's doubling about every 18 months. And if you look at the diagram, you can see that I think we have 300 times more data than grains of sand right now. Now, data is growing so fast that it's outpacing the ability for traditional data analytics tools to analyze, which is causing a huge insight gap. Now, this insight gap is causing companies to lose a lot of money. Now, a recent study in the UK found that just in the marketing industry alone, over $4 billion was being wasted because of this gap in this insight. And we help you fill that gap. Now, let's look at why there's so much waste here. Now, if you look at the traditional way that data gets processed, you gotta do infrastructure setup, collection, processing, distribution, And then you gotta ask different organizations with different skill sets to essentially just analyze simple data. And the more data you have, the more resources and the more time that you need. Unfortunately, big data solutions, the current big data solutions right now do not solve this problem. What Peloton does. Now, instead of just talking about it, let me show you what it does. My colleague's going to help me, and let me set up so I can really talk a little more. Now, as you can see, the first thing you notice right here is that it's an enterprise software. It has all the bells and whistles of enterprise software like dashboards, user controls. And the first thing users are going to do with this tool is to build a Hadoop deployment. Now, generally to build a Hadoop deployment, you gotta write code, you gotta open a shell, it gets very complicated. But as you can see, with Peloton, with a click of a button, not only can you build a new Hadoop deployment from scratch, you can add to the existing one. And once you build that Hadoop deployment or that set of clusters, all the logs that's being generated would then be put automatically into our monitoring tool right here, so that you can in real time manage those servers. Now, this is the boring stuff, right? This is the underbelly of enterprise cluster big data management. It's a required component, but it's not the fun part. We want to get to the fun part, which is the analyze part. Now, before I go any further, let me ask the audience right now, how many of you have heard about Hadoop? Raise your hand. All right, so you got, 5, 6, 7 people. How many of you have coded in MapReduce? Raise your hand. Wow, surprisingly, we still have 3 people here. That's 3 people in this whole audience that can do big data analysis. Now, with Peloton, what you can do right from our system is build beautiful graphs without writing a single code of MapReduce. Not a single line. And this is done in real time. Now, anytime people hear real time, right? Real time and big data, go, wait a minute, no, that's not possible. Right? So just to kind of satisfy all the doubters out there, we're going to do what they solve. Now, he's going to run a traditional mechanism of doing big data analysis with traditional tools. So if you look in the background here, you don't have to worry about that. That's German or Russian for just running MapReduce code on the same set of servers that Peloton's running right now on the same set of data. So things are happening, blah, 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 we'll keep waiting. I don't know if we'll have enough time. So we'll just let this run in the background, and then we're going to run the same code, the same query again on Peloton. And remember, this is the same code, same data set, same server, we're not changing anything else, right? And when you run it, comes right off the bat, right? Now, what happens, all right, show you. And I think in the background, right, now, the background job is still running, the traditional way that's running. And what happens is when you you wait how many minutes, hopefully minutes, you still only have this data. And essentially what you would have to do is take this data, move it into a different tool, analytical tool, so you can visualize and see a report. But with Peloton, all you have to do is add the word graph in the beginning of the same query, and you now have a base export and use it your web. Now, we didn't stop there. That alone, I think, would be great. But what we decided to do is truly make Peloton extensible and flexible. And to enable to do that, we allow any company, any data scientist, to take their custom algorithms and plug them right in to be scalable right away. Now, it's going to run a very simple algorithm that I think a lot of companies use. This is it's called a sentiment graph, right? So Twitter data is the rage in the world right now. So a lot of companies want to know, hey, are people liking me, not liking me, like my product, not liking me? Now to do this across terabytes of data, you got to remember back to the traditional way people did data analysis. This will take days, potentially months. But with Peloton, again, you run this across all your data sets in seconds. This is a different way to do data. This is a very different way to do data analysis. Hold on, let me get the. Other companies right now only address part of the problem. Now they're either through Hadoop management. I don't know if you're familiar with some of these companies, but they either provide Hadoop management or they provide limited analytics. And many of these big data analytics companies only allow predetermined set of charts on a limited set of data. Not with Peloton, not anymore. Now it's been about a year, and we designed and we built our first version of Peloton, and we already have great organizations like SK Broadband, KT, and LG leveraging Peloton across over 1 petabyte of data. And that's just the beginning. We already have mobile companies, commerce companies in our pipeline, and we have US enterprises who are very interested in using Peloton across their data sets. But again, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Gartner estimates that $34 billion will be spent by the IT industry on big data tools like Peloton. 34 billion, that's a big number. Now, data is going to continue to rise as more devices get connected, as more people get connected. It's inevitable that data is going to continue to rise. And more data gets accumulated, the greater that inside gap. And as that inside gap increases, more and more companies are going to have a hard time making decisions. Accurate business decisions that you need to do. So to summarize, Peloton's a different way to do big data analytics. We are an end-to-end big data analytics that is truly extensible and flexible. And we want to share this with the world. And to share this with the world, we created a personal edition that you can download for free right now on our website. Now this personal edition will enable you to download it and see what's truly possible with big data analytics for free right now. And that's SparkLabs. Now, a lot of people, I think, when you talk about big data, you hear about people saying that we need more data scientists and that we need to train more data scientists. We believe that we need more tools to enable everyone to be a data scientist. Now we're actively looking for partners who have passion for big data analytics and want to redefine the industry like we do. And if that's you, come talk to us afterwards. Thank you. My name is Hijun Ra, and we are SparkLabs.
안녕하세요. SparkLabs입니다. 저희는 중소규모의 모바일 게임 개발사를 위한 광고 마켓플레이스를 제공합니다. 오늘 발표를 맡은 저는 SparkLabs의 대표를 맡고 있는 이창수라고 합니다. 여기 보신 이 그래프는 한국의 모바일 게임 시장의 규모를 보여주는 그래프입니다. 작년부터 시작해서 급격하게 성장을 하고 있고요. 올해는 이미 1조를 넘는 시장이 될 것이라고 예상을 하고 있습니다. 하지만 시장이 이렇게 급격하게 성장을 하고 있기 때문에 경쟁이 역시 심화되고 있는데요. 보시는 그래프는 2011년 기준으로 해서 미국의 아이폰에서 탑25 차트에 들어가기 위해서는 데일리 다운로드가 몇 건이 필요하냐를 보여주는 그래프입니다. 전체에서는 4만 건의 다운로드가 필요하고요. 게임에서는 2만 5천 건 정도의 다운로드가 필요했었습니다. 그런데 이건 2011년의 데이터고요. 경쟁이 점점 더 심화되고 있어서 작년에는 4만 건이 필요했던 것이 7만 5천 건이 필요하게, 탑25에 들어가기 위해서 7만 5천 건이 필요하게 2배 가까이 뛰었고, 인스톨 한 건당 페이하는 가격도 0.55불에서 1.5불로 2배 이상 증가했습니다. 점점 더 마케팅이 어려워지고 새로운 마케팅 방법에 대한 수요가 급증하고 있는 시기가 되겠습니다. 그러면 큰 게임 개발사나 작은 게임 개발사나 사실 원하는 바는 다 똑같습니다. 이렇게 상위에 랭크되는 대박 게임을 만드는 것이 모두의 꿈이자 목표가 되겠는데요. 그러면 어떻게 하면 상위 게임에 랭크되는 대박 게임을 만들 수 있을까? 게임을 잘 만드는 것만으로는 부족합니다. 다른 여러 가지 것들을 고민해야 하는데요. 첫 번째는 우리 게임을 만들어서 어디에다가 어떻게 알릴 것이냐. 두 번째는 신규 유저를 어디서 찾아야 할까? 그러면 유저가 좋으면 그걸로 끝이냐? 그렇지 않습니다. 게임이 오랫동안 남아있게 하기 위해서는 어떻게 해야 하느냐? 게임이 쏟아내는 데이터가 아주 많은데요. 지표 분석을 어떻게 할 것이냐? 어느 정도 트래픽이 나온다고 했을 때 그럼 그 트래픽에서 매출을 어떻게 일으킬 것이냐? 여러 가지 문제들이 있습니다. 하지만 이러한 모든 문제들을 크게 세 가지의 굴분에 생각을 해볼 수가 있는데요. 첫 번째는 신규 유저와 관련되는 어퀴지션의 문제입니다. 두 번째는 유저를 오래 남아있게 하는 리텐션의 문제입니다. 그리고 마지막으로 매출을 일으키는 모네타이제이션의 문제로 구분해서 생각을 할 수가 있습니다. 그러면 앞서의 문제들을 해결하기 위한 솔루션이 기존에는 시장에 없었냐? 라고 하면 그렇지는 않습니다. 개별의 문제를 해결하는 솔루션들은 이미 시장에 나와 있습니다. 하지만 게임 개발사 입장에서 봤을 때는 이러한 SDK들이 상당히 많이 있기 때문에 게임 하나에 여러 개의 SDK를 매번 번거롭게 작업을 해야 하는 문제가 있습니다. 그래서 게임사 입장에서는 게임 개발 이외에 모든 마케팅적인 문제를 한 번에 해결해주는 올인원 솔루션이나 마케팅 플랫폼에 대한 니즈가 증가하고 있는 추세입니다. 게임 개발사는 크게 히트작이나 매출을 가지고 두 종류를 나눠볼 수가 있는데요. 첫 번째는 히트작이 있거나 매출이 많은 대형 개발사고요. 이 대형 개발사의 경우에는 리소스가 충분하기 때문에 앞서의 문제들을 힘들지만 어떻게든 해결할 수가 있습니다. 하지만 중소형 게임 개발사의 경우에는 리소스가 턱없이 부족합니다. 게임을 잘 만들기만 해도 아주 힘든 일이죠. 리소스가 부족합니다. 그래서 저희 파이브락스는 이런 중소형 게임 개발사를 고객으로 해서 이들이 게임 개발에만 집중할 수 있도록 그 이외의 모든 마케팅 문제를 한 번에 해결할 수 있는 마케팅 플랫폼을 제공합니다. 여기에 또 하나의 다른 큰 기회가 있는데요. 앞으로 중소형 게임 개발사들은 훨씬 늘어날 것이라는 점입니다. 왜냐하면 게임을 하나 개발하는 데 필요한 코스트들이 점점 더 낮아지고 있기 때문입니다. 이러한 시장 상황과 기회를 바탕으로 해서 파이브락스가 탄생하게 되었습니다. 저희가 지금까지 수많은 중소형 게임 개발사들을 인터뷰해본 결과 거기 안에서도 크게 두 가지 다른 니즈가 있는 것을 확인할 수 있었습니다. 일단 어느 정도의 트래픽을 확보하고 있는 중형 개발사의 경우에는 모네타이제이션의 문제를 가장 크게 느끼고 있었습니다. 그러면 일반적으로 그냥 게임에 광고 붙이면 되잖아 라고 생각을 하고 그렇게 지금 진행이 되고 있습니다. 하지만 내부에는 아주 복잡한 문제들이 있는데요. 첫 번째는 광고를 붙였을 때 기존의 게이머들이 어떻게 반응할지 잘 모르겠다. 두 번째는 광고별로 낼 수 있는 매출이 아주 다릅니다. 그런데 이런 것을 최적화하기가 너무 어렵게 되어 있습니다. 그 이유는 게임별로 특성이 너무 다르고 게이머와도 특성이 너무 다르기 때문에 그런데요. 왼쪽에 보시는 그래프를 보시면 이거는 게임의 장르별로 1 액티브 사용자 수와 유저당 페이하는 금액을 나타내는 그래프입니다. 게임마다 이렇게 다르고요. 그리고 게임마다 게이머마다 광고를 보여줬을 때 거기에 대한 반응이 너무 다르고 광고를 보고 나서 제공하는 리워드에 대한 반응도 너무 다릅니다. 그러면 어떻게 해야 하느냐? 그래서 파이브락스에서는 매출과 관련된 모든 데이터를 실시간으로 분석해서 보여줍니다. 그리고 지금 이 시점에서 무엇을 해야 하는지 게임사에게 구체적으로 알려줍니다. 비즈니스 인텔리전스를 제공하는 거죠. 그리고 이를 통해서 광고를 바꿔 나가면서 매출을 극대화할 수 있게 되어 있습니다. 두 번째는 소형 개발사의 경우인데요. 소형 개발사의 경우에는 상대적으로 신규 유저를 유입시키는 어퀴지션의 문제가 훨씬 더 심각한 문제입니다. 그럼 여기에서도 그냥 광고 하면 되잖아 라고 일반적으로 생각을 할 수가 있는데요. 역시 안에는 복잡한 문제들이 있습니다. 예를 들면 클릭은 많이 되는데 인스톨이 안 돼요 하거나 아니면 인스톨은 꽤 되는데 유저들이 게임을 실행을 시키지를 않아요. 이런 문제들이 있습니다. 그래서 파이브락스에서는 모바일 게임에 맞게 완전히 다른 새로운 측정 기준과 새로운 매체를 제안합니다. 기존의 인스톨 베이스드 광고 같은 경우에는 인스톨 한 건당 비용을 지불하게 되어 있습니다. 하지만 일반적으로 인스톨을 받은 사용자의 60% 정도만이 그 게임을 처음 실행시켜보고 그리고 그 중에서도 한 판을 플레이해본 사용자는 훨씬 적습니다. 게임을 한 판도 플레이해보지 않은 사용자를 신규 유저라고 보기 힘들겠죠. 그래서 파이브락스에서는 인스톨 기반이 아니라 액티베이션을 기반으로 한 광고 상품을 제공하고 있습니다. 두 번째로 기존의 에드 네트워크에서는 내 게임이 어느 이벤트로 나가는지 그런 것들을 알고 최적화하는 것이 되게 어렵게 되어 있습니다. 하지만 게임은 특성이 모두 다르기 때문에 유사한 게임들끼리 뭉쳐야지 최고의 효과를 낼 수가 있습니다. 그래서 파이브락스에서는 본인의 게임이 어떤 유사한 이벤트를 나가고 있는지 그리고 이런 것들을 어떻게 최적화해야 최고의 광고 효과를 볼 수 있을지 이런 부분들을 모두 투명하게 제공해 드리고 있습니다. 그러면 데모를 보여드리도록 하겠습니다. 네, 먼저 광고를 받는 입장에서의 비즈니스 인텔리전스에 대해서 설명을 드리겠습니다. 여기 그래프를 보시면 게임 안에서 광고가 노출이 얼마나 됐는데 그래서 클릭은 얼마나 되었는지 그러면 클릭된 것들 중에서 인스톨은 얼마나 되었는지 이런 것들을 바로바로 확인할 수가 있습니다. 그리고 중요한 인스톨이 된 비율들 중에서 게임을 실행한 사용자는 얼마나 되는지 그리고 첫째 판 플레이한 사용자는 얼마나 되는지 이런 것들을 바로바로 확인할 수가 있고 이러한 모든 그래프들을 다 실시간으로 확인할 수가 있습니다. 실시간으로 5초에 한 번씩 업데이트 되는 식으로 되어 있습니다. 그리고 위에 보시는 두 개의 공지를 보시면 이게 게임이 쏟아내는 데이터를 하드를 이용해서 빅데이터 어널리시스를 한 다음에 거기에서 기존의 데이터보다 현저하게 낮은 수치를 보여주거나 현저하게 높은 수치를 보여줬을 때 이 게임 제공자에게 알림을 줍니다. 그리고 이 알림에서 제공하는 구체적인 가이드라인에 따라서 게임에서 보여주는 광고를 바꿀 수 있게 되어 있고요. 그것을 통해서 매출 극대화를 이룰 수 있게 되어 있습니다. 그럼 이번에는 광고를 하는 입장에서 살펴보겠습니다. 광고를 하는 입장에서는 우리 게임과 가장 유사한 게임들을 모아서 최고로 효과 있는 광고를 하는 게 중요한데요. 그런데 이렇게 게임이 많이 나오고 있는데 우리 게임과 가장 유사한 게임을 어떻게 찾을 수 있을까요? 네, 파이브락스에서는 등록한 게임과 가장 유사한 게임, 가장 효과가 높을 것으로 생각되는 게임을 이렇게 추천을 했습니다. 추천 로직은 게임의 장르, 인스톨 패턴, 앱의 사이즈 이런 것들을 보고 추천을 해줍니다. 그리고 플레이스토어와 앱스토어에서 데일리 베이스로 게임 관련된 앱 데이터를 크롤링해와서 매일매일 정보를 업데이트하고 있는데요. 이 중에서 이 모든 데이터를 세부적인 기준에 맞춰서 검색을 할 수 있게 되어 있습니다. 예를 들면 미국에 출시되어 있는 카드게임 중에서 인스톨이 10만 건 이상 되는 게임을 찾고 싶다 라고 하면 여기 검색이 가능하고요. 여기를 보니 우리 게임이랑 합쳐서 같이 광고를 해보면 좋겠다 라고 생각되는 게임을 골라서 이 게임들에게 그룹디를 신청할 수가 있습니다. 그룹디를 신청하게 되면 유사한 게임들이 인벤토리를 합쳐서 한 게임씩 광고를 해줍니다. 그래서 짧은 시간에 의미 있는 숫자의 인스톨을 만들어낼 수가 있습니다. 그러면 이렇게 해서 만든 광고가 실제 앱 안에서 어떻게 보여지는지, 게임 안에서 어떻게 보여지는지를 보여드리겠습니다. 네. 지금 보시는 화면은 제 핸드폰을 그대로 영상하고 있는 거고요. 이 게임 안에서 게임마다 커스텀 아이템 버튼을 눌렀을 때 이런 식으로 광고를 보여줍니다. 지금 보시는 3개 회사의 광고는 그룹들에 참여한 모든 회사의 광고가 동시에 노출되는 식이고요. 그래서 각각 클릭이 가능합니다. 왼쪽에 보이시는 나이프 몬스터 같은 경우에는 게임을 다운받고 첫 번째 판을 클리어했을 때만 리워드를 제공하는 식으로 액티베이션 기반의 광고 상품을 이용한 경우입니다. 그러면 저희가 누구인지를 다시 한번 말씀드리면서 발표를 정리하려고 하는데요. 저희는 중소규모의 게임 개발사를 위해서 기존과는 완전히 다른 마켓플레이스를 제공합니다. 중형 게임 개발사에게는 모네타이제이션에 특화된 솔루션을 제공하고요. 소형 개발사에게는 어퀴지션에 특화된 솔루션을 제공합니다. 그래서 혹시 이 자리에 게임 개발사를 운영하고 계시는 분이 계시거나 아니면 주변에서 게임 개발에만 집중하고 싶다. 나머지 모든 문제는 플랫폼을 통해서 해결하고 싶다. 라는 분을 아시면 바로 fiveblocks.io로 메일을 주시면 되겠습니다. 저희가 파트너가 되어드리겠습니다. 네, 소중한 시간 내주셔서 여기 오신 분들 모두 감사드리고요. 그리고 좋은 기회 만들어주신 스파크랩에 다시 한번 감사드립니다. fiveblocks의 이창수였습니다. 감사합니다.
Hello everyone, my name is Dino and I'm co-founder and CEO of Minibox. Before I start my presentation, I want you to have a look inside your shopping bags. There's a beauty box that's full of products. To help with my understanding of the presentation, you might want to have a look at it before I start my presentation. So our company focuses on beauty as cosmetics, solving problems, and building solutions. In order to do that, we have to ask ourselves 3 questions. Why beauty, and why is experience and discovery so important? Being beautiful is not easy. There are more than 1,400 brands in Korea, with 16 products from each brand, and that's 22,400 selections to choose from. It's a total chaos, and we found a business opportunity. Our company was built on one mission, and the mission is to innovate beauty industry with better service and technology for easier discovery. We were able to build a 2-side platform business model that is mutually beneficial to brands and consumers. Brands and us exchange products and marketing. Consumers and us exchange information, and they generate revenue for us. Brands are able to market better, have more sales, and consumers are able to find right products for them and be more satisfied. So these are the 2 services that we have. One is called Mimibox, and the other is called Mimi Shop. Let me tell you more about Mimibox. It's also known as Beauty Box or Subscription Commerce. It was launched in February 7th, 2012. It is a marketing platform for brands.
In exchange to the products that brands give us, we offer them a marketing solution. Sampling to high-profile customers, media exposure including TV, online assets marketing including Facebook and Pinterest, and monthly reports. Here's a report that is 110 pages, and there's no cash transaction between brands and us. For consumers, it's an experience service. You get the box for $15 including shipping to your house. You're able to try new products at home. So this is the consumer experience loop that we created. First, they hear about us online or on TV. They come to our website to subscribe to Mimibox, and then they come back to buy full-size products if they are satisfied. I want to show you some numbers that we have achieved over the past year. 185 brands around the world partnered with us, including L'Oreal and Amara Pacific. We had 35 different types of boxes. That's a new box every 11 days. 64,900 boxes delivered to customers. That's more than 330,000 products experienced. 6,272 are subscribing to Mimibox on a monthly basis, with only termination rate of 1.35%. And most importantly, that's our revenue just with Mimibox. $1.4 million US dollars. And here's our another service, Mimi Shop. It has higher conversion rate than any other e-commerce models since customers have already experienced the product. Again, some key numbers, 72 brands partnered. That's total 254 brands, including Mimibox. We have 16 weekly and 3 daily new campaigns. We see this as a big potential since we only had 2 people on the team for Mimi Shop. It's growing, but it's just starting. So how were we able to do this? It's only been a year since the company was founded, and we think right team is the most important factor. For the first 6 months, we focused on finding great salespeople. And for the next 6 months, we focused on finding beauty experts. We hired professionals from L'Oreal and magazines. And from now on, we'll really focus on finding great tech experts, engineers, and designers. So right now, we have a team of 31 professionals in our company. But we are looking for another breakthrough. And we think mobile is the direction. We call it single touch commerce. And I'll show you a demo right now. It's a simple technology, but everyone was talking about mobile. So we had to do a beta test, and we called it single touch commerce. It's a personalized SMS to each individual with their buying habits and feedbacks from our website. We send them a message, they press the link, and we show them the product that they might like. All the information are filled in, including your address and your phone number. You'd only have to press once to either buy the product or not. So what have we achieved? 1.5 times higher click rate compared to email, 10 times higher purchase rate. And we think this is a big success, and we are ready to build a bigger platform on mobile. With $35,000 state money, we generate more than 1.5 million with just web. Imagine what Mimibox would be like in mobile era, and if we were to expand globally. Thank you for listening. Come to our website and find your true beauty. Thank you.
그 쇼핑백에 보시면은 그 미니박스가 다 있거든요. 우리 아주 그 그레이셔스리하게 이렇게 제공해 주셨습니다. 여러분, 네, 감사합니다. 저기 그 퍼스트 클래스 분들 다 올라오시겠어요? 지금부터 Q&A를 잠깐 하겠는데요. 그 퍼스트 클래스 발표하신 분들, 그 다음에 관련자들 다 올라와 주시고요. 그 스파크랩 관련자들도 오시고요. 저도 이제 한국에서 이런 발표를 하다 보면은 굉장히 질문들을 안 하시거든요. 미국 같은 경우는 막 여기 줄 서서 막 하는데 발표도 안 해요. 여기 우리 다시 한번 박수 부탁드립니다. 지금 그 마이크 잡고 걸어다니는 그 스파크랩 관련자가 있을 텐데요. 질문 뭐 어느 그냥 뭐 제너럴 질문이 아니라 어느 회사한테 질문하고 싶으셔도 그냥 질문하시면 됩니다. 한 15분 정도 Q&A를 진행할 예정인데요. 예.
네, 노리에 대해서 질문을 한번 해보고 싶습니다. 저 교육에 대해서 굉장히 관심이 많은데 저 자신도 학부모로서 굉장히 그 피해갈 수 없는 분야인 것 같고 굉장히 이노베이션 필요한 분야라는 걸 공감하는데 지금 수학 분야에 대해서 발표를 해주셨는데 제가 이해하기로 그 특히 수학 분야도 그렇지만 수학은 뭔가 컨셉추얼한 걸 알고 적용하는 거에 더 적합하지 이렇게 그 프로세스를 하나하나 나누어서 하나하나 뭐 부족한 부분을 알려주는 게 과연 수학 교육에 더 적합한 건지에 대해서는 저는 이렇게 쉽게 동의하기 어려울 것 같은데 그렇다고 뭔가 다른 더 좋은 방법이 생각나는 건 아니지만 이게 과연 교육에 맞는 방법일까? 물론 제 질문은 그러니까 혁신은 필요한데 그 방향이 과연 맞는 것인지 어떤 생각으로 이쪽 방향으로 잡게 되셨는지가 일단 좀 궁금합니다.
저희가 일단은 저희 프로덕트를 처음 만들게 된 게 저희가 실제로 이제 학원에서 학생들을 가르치면서 이제 필요에 의해서 처음에 아이디어를 생각하게 된 건데 가장 큰 이유가 뭐였냐면 결국에는 학생들이 이제 교실이나 뭐 학원 우리나라 같은 학원이 이제 많이 다니니까 학원이다 보면 이제 뭐 보통 10명, 20명, 30명의 학생들이 같이 공부를 하잖아요. 그래서 이제 그 공부를 하는 과정을 보면 이제 학생들이 서로 알고 모르는 게 다 틀리기 때문에 선생님이 칠판 앞에서 그냥 혼자 강의를 하는 거는 사실 학생들한테 많은 도움이 되지는 못해요. 실제로 어떤 학생들은 굉장히 쉬운 내용일 거고 어떤 학생한테는 계속 모르는 내용을 얘기해 주는 것밖에 안 되는 경우가 많았거든요. 그러면서 이제 저희도 결국 그 개인화된 콘텐츠가 필요하다는 걸 느끼게 됐고 그리고 이제 결국엔 그러면 수학 교육에 있어서 가장 좋은 방법이 뭐냐 저희가 이제 생각했던 건 뭐냐면 사실 수학 교육을 하는 가장 좋은 건 1대1 튜터링을 하는 거거든요. 선생님이 옆에 앉아서 학생이 문제 푸는 걸 보다가 이 학생이 중간에 어느 단계에서 같아요. 그러면 그 단계에서 어떤 지식이 부족했는지 보고 예전에 만약에 이제 뭐 중3에 배우는 내용이다. 그냥 뭐 중2나 중1 때 배웠던 걸 또 가지고 와서 가르쳐 주죠. 근데 사실 그런 게 가장 좋은 방법이었고 저희가 어떻게 보면 그 프로세스를 구현하려고 했던 거예요. 그래서 사실 수학이라는 게 물론 말씀하신 것처럼 어떤 큰 개념을 아는 것도 중요한데 실제로 수학은 이제 문제를 해결할 수 있어야 되거든요. 근데 문제를 해결할 때 이제 대부분의 학생들이 이제 중간에서 이제 지식이 부족해서 막히는 경우, 그러니까 그걸 해결하기 위해서 이제 저희 프로덕트 방식을 고안한 거였습니다.
No one else? No questions. Okay. 우선은 그러면 그 모닝 세션은 이래서 그 진행을 마치고요. 이게 그 데모데이인데 제가 아까 부탁드린 말씀 스파클랩스가 하는 일에 관심을 가져주시고 또 여기서 이제 스타트업을 하시는 분들은 저희 2기를 갖다가 세컨 클래스 애플리케이션을 갖다가 3월 말부터 액셉트를 해가지고요. 4월 말부터 결정을 하거든요. 그러니까 지금 이제 확정된 건 아닌데 아마 8개에서 10개 회사를 갖다가 아마 또 골라서 또 10주 동안 이렇게 하게 될 겁니다. 그렇게 들어오시면은 이제 저희들하고 이제 같이 상의를 하시고 여러 가지 이제 사람들 소개를 받으실 수 있고요. 그 다음에 저희들이 한 주 하는 티칭 세션에 오셔서 기업하는 노하우, 그 다음에 회사를 크게 하는 노하우, 펀드레이징 하는 노하우 등을 같이 들을 수 있습니다. 예, 그러면은 우선 기자분들은 저희들이 점심을 갖다가 모시고 와서 대접을 할 계획이고요. 또 여기 여기 VIP 고객 VIP 참석해 주신 분들은 여기 계시면은 저희들이 안내를 하겠고요. 오늘 애프터눈 세션이 12시 반 12시 반 여기서 다시 시작할 예정입니다. 그래서 점심 드시고 여기 다시 12시 반에 와주시면 또 애프터눈 세션을 진행을 하겠습니다. 네, 감사합니다. wait, hold on. I'm sorry. 저기 한 가지 어나운스먼트가 또 하나 있겠습니다. 그 어나운스먼트는 버나드 눈, 우리 제너럴 파트너 중에 한 명인 저런 분이 해주겠습니다. Okay, I'll tell them. Alright. Okay, 우리 지금 뒤에 웹사이트에 띄우려는데요. 6월달에 또 SparkLab이 진행하는 행사가 하나 있습니다. 그 행사 이름은 넥스트인데요. 요거는 약간 테크놀로지하고는 좀 떨어진 건데 근데 관련이 있습니다. 그러니까 미래에 대한 이노베이션에 대해서 그 주제를 갖고 이제 해외에서 한국에서 많이 볼 수 없는 분들을 소개를 해가지고 패널 디스커션이 아니면 이렇게 키노트 스피치나 아니면 공개 인터뷰식으로 진행을 할 계획이거든요. 그래서 그 중에 이제 오는 분 중에 하나가 이제 리처드 포르다라고 아마 한국에서는 그렇게 많이 알려주시는 분은 아닌 것 같은데 지금 미국이나 유럽 쪽에서 굉장히 많은 관심을 받고 있는 사람이고 그 사람이 쓴 책이 Rise of what was the name? The Rise of the Creative Class. 그게 그 책의 주제가 뭐냐면은 이제 왜 많은 이노베이션들이 이런 urban center, 서울 같은 큰 도시에서 일어나며 그거를 바탕으로 어떻게 퍼블릭 파우시를 갖다가 잘 주도를 해서 그걸 더 이노베이션을 많이 하느냐. 그래서 굉장히 지금 주목을 많이 받고 있는 책이고 그 사람의 그런 필로소피가 중요하고요. 그 사람이 와서 이제 키노트 스피커를 하고 또 레이 아지, 혹시 아시는 분 미국에서 굉장히 유명한 분이죠. 저희 고문 중에 한 명이시고 마이크로소프트에서 Chief Software Architect. 그러니까 빌 게이츠가 CEO 잡을 은퇴하고 나서 자기가 CSO였잖아요. Chief Software Architect. 그것도 나오면서 물려준 사람이 바로 레이 아지입니다. 맨 처음에 유명해진 거는 로러스를 개발한 사람이고. 그분이 오셔서 또 자기가 지금 하고 있는 일 그리고 앞으로 미래에 대해서 자기의 생각을 밝혀주실 거고요. 그리고 또 그 주제 중 하나가 이제 앞으로 저희 SparkLab도 인터넷 기업뿐만 아니라 이제 헬스케어 쪽에서도 투자를 시작을 하거든요. 그래서 그 헬스케어의 미래 많이들 생각을 못하시고 계시지만 한국에서도 그 헬스케어 쪽으로 굉장히 많은 이노베이션이 생기고 있습니다. 그래서 그 헬스케어 쪽으로도 이제 그 하나의 주제를 갖고 하게 되겠습니다. 어떻게 나왔나요? Okay, let's get the website up. 지금 저희들 여기에 대해서 더 궁금하신 분들은 next conference.co.kr로 가시면은 있고요. 그래서 이거는 이제 저희들이 SparkLab의 원래 하는 인큐베이션이나 엑셀러레이션과는 이제 별개의 프로그램인데요. 지금 여기 오시는 것도 다 오늘처럼 그냥 무료로 들어오셔서 보실 수가 있고요. 오시는 스피커들이 지금 확정된 스피커들이 지금 여기에 이렇게 나와 있습니다. 그래서 아마 오셔서 보시면은 옛날에 워낙 유명한 사람들이고 워낙 실력 있는 사람들이지만 한국에 잘 못 오는 아직까지는 한국에 얼마나 기회나 발판이나 마련이 안 됐던 사람들이 와서 그냥 인터넷뿐만이 아니라 미래의 모든 이노베이션에 대해서 이렇게 공유를 하고 이렇게 인티메트한 세팅에서도 공유를 해서 뭔가 또 아이디어를 받아가실 수 있는 자리를 마련한다는 게 저희들의 취지고 스파클랩과 할 수 있는 일 중에 하나라고 저희들은 생각하고 있습니다. Anything else you want to talk about? Okay, so next conference.co.kr, your June 14th, 6월 14일 날 한국에서 열릴 예정입니다. 예, 그러면은 anything else? Okay. So thanks again for coming. 오셔서 감사하고요. 점심 식사 뒤에 뵙도록 하겠습니다. 12시간. 예. 주제는 Future of the Online Entertainment. 그러니까 그 엔터테인먼트의 미래, 그 온라인 엔터테인먼트의 미래를 갖다가 하는데요. 오늘 아주 중요한 두 분을 모시고 그 말씀을 드리도록 하겠습니다. 우선 그 옆에 계신 저기 그 여자 기자분들은 그 테크크런치에서 오신 캐트린 수입니다. 아마 여기 그 스타트업을 하시거나 아니면은 그 테크놀로지를 하시는 분들은 테크크런치를 아주 잘 아실 텐데요. 테크크런치에서 오신 그 캐트린 수는 원래는 그 뉴욕시티에서 그 월스트리트 저널 온라인, 그다음에 베런스 온라인에서 그 시작하셨고요. 그리고 또 중국어를 공부한 다음에 이제 아시아로 이제 이사를 와서 이제 지금 타이페이에 타이완에 있고 그 지금 테크크런치의 그 아시아 쪽 그 담당 그 코레스폰던트를 하고 계시는 분입니다. 그 참고로 그다음에 그 콜롬비아 그 Graduate School of Journalism에 나오셨고요. 그리고 여기 그 패널리스트 중에 그 테디 Z, 테디 Z는 그 할리우드에서 그 아주 성공하시고 유명하신 그 film producer and movie industry executive. 뭐 지금 뭐 미국에서 잘 나가고 있는 뭐 퀀텀 퀘스트나 캐시디 스페이스 아르시 뭐 등등에서 지금 아주 오랫동안 할리우드에서 활동하신 분이고 요즘은 또 테크놀로지 쪽에서도 계속 일을 하고 계시고요. 그 다음에 그 옆에 앉으신 아주 머리 스타일이 아주 훌륭하신 그 I talked about your hairstyle, Rob. So you know, Rob DeMillo is a CTO of Revision 3. 아까 아침에 설명드렸듯이 그 Revision 3는 미국에서 굉장히 크게 성공을 하고 계시는 있는 그 인터넷 그 방송, 한국으로 보면 뭐 홈TV 스타일 그 정도라고 생각하시면 되고 지금 현재 600 million 비디오 뷰를 하고 계시고요. 그리고 이제 앞으로 이제 아마 1 billion까지 가는 거에 갈 것 같고요. 그리고 얼마 전에 그 디스커버리 채널에서 미국에 있는 그 방송국 중에 하나죠. 그 디스커버리 채널에서 이 회사를 바이아웃을 했죠. 그래서 이분이 그 CTO, 전체적인 모든 테크놀로지와 거기 인프라스트럭처를 다 책임을 지시고 있는 분이시고 또 리비전 3 전에 여러 스타트업을 갖다가 성공도 해보시고 실패도 하신 분입니다. 예, 그러면은 애프터눈 세션을 진행을 시작하도록 하겠습니다. Alright, Catherine, you want to get started?
Great. So I think this panel is a really great chance to basically learn more about the future of the online entertainment industry because Teddy and Rob both cover the entire gamut of how people are consuming media. Teddy, comes from a Hollywood production background, of course, and then of course you're also looking at mobile technology. And then Rob, he's worked for Revision 3, and Revision 3's name basically comes from the different ways that people are, the way that how people consume media online or television content has evolved over the past.
I think we've moved up to Revision 27.
Yeah, so I was basically wondering if maybe we could start with having you to tell me about maybe a couple trends that you're excited about in terms of the online media and mobile space.
So in the last 18 months of Revision 3, we've done a lot to push media consumption away from the web. When we first started, all of our consumers were viewing us through the revision3.com website, which you can still do, but good. Eventually, over the years, we've today, we're looking at platforms on the iPhone, iOS, all the Android platforms, from phones up to Google Television, various over-the-top boxes, which is a term that's used these days to imply set-top boxes that are attached to television sets, so Roku, those sorts of devices. We're about ready to release an Xbox application that we're very proud of and excited to see. So all of these different methods are what people are gravitating towards. The content itself has not changed, but the method of consumption has.
Yeah, I think the biggest trend that has influenced the work that I'm doing is recognizing what Dino had said today about everything going mobile. So there are two big issues with mobile. Number one, how can you better monetize? Whoever can figure out how to monetize on mobile is going to take over the universe. That's number one. But number two, it's about using connected devices, mobile devices, to help bridge traditional entertainment with this new wave and this new generation. So that, in a lot of respects, it's taking place as a second screen device. So many people now, I think research studies are showing up to over 70% of people, while they're watching traditional television, have a computer, a smartphone, or a tablet on their lap, and they are multitasking. So that's great for this distracted generation of viewers. It's a little bit more challenging for advertisers and content owners who have relied on owning a monopoly in terms of broadcast television. You could only watch TV in the beginning of time. You could maybe get up to go to the bathroom. Then, you had DVDs or VHS come out, and DVDs and video games and internet. And now, everything is competing, and people are afraid that traditional television is losing its monopoly status. Now, obviously, television is always going to be here. Live events are prime, but traditional scripted television is in jeopardy. And one of the greatest trends that's going on is, how can we corral that distracted behavior that everybody's engaging in and funnel it back to the content? How can we build this metadata around these shows so that people will use their distracted behavior and dive into a deeper layer of information about that show? And how can we help content owners and advertisers monetize further than they're doing now? So that, for me, is the big trend.
Yeah, actually, that brings me to a question I wanted to ask Rob, because previously we talked about user engagement on mobile, how people actually want longer form content on it because there's less distractions. I was wondering if you could tell me an audience bit about that.
Sure. You're referring to a study that I did at the beginning of this last year, I'm not sure what year this is anyway, which is available, by the way, on the Revision 3 website. We looked specifically at the Amazon Kindle as it came out, and we started to look at it just to measure the trends on it, to see how well it was performing as a device against some of our other devices. And a lot of interesting patterns started to emerge. When we compared the same length show watched on the web, watched on over-the-top boxes, and then watched on the Kindle, we noticed an interesting trend. People were watching content to the end of the content on the Kindle, whereas on television they did the digital equivalent of the channel flipping, they moved to another video stream to watch it. And then diving into that information even more, we started to notice that the engagement times were increasing. So the length of video people were watching on the Kindle and generalized out the tablets in general was increasing. It wound up, I believe the numbers were something like 20 minutes to 30 minutes video viewing at a time, which was something that was new to us. And so we kept track of that trend and as things were moving forward. And sure enough, as the devices became more and more personal and people were cuddling up with a good TV show, I guess, on their tablets, we were watching those engagements go way, way, way up.
Yeah, actually, I thought that was pretty interesting because, on the one hand, there's a lot of demand for increased shorter content, like you said, all these viral videos they've gone from being a few minutes to nearly seconds long. But on the other hand,
Yes, they have.
on the other hand, you have sort of Netflix and all these other video streaming networks. They basically release entire seasons of
huge divide between long-form content and short-form content, big budgets, small budgets, advertiser-supported in a traditional sense versus these minuscule CPMs compared to what's going on. So while from a consumer standpoint, being able to enjoy your programming on a digital basis is a matter of convenience, and you're relatively more free of advertising, so it's liberating to a certain extent. But on the other hand, from a business standpoint, that kind of viewing is cannibalizing or potentially cannibalizing the traditional viewing. So, when you always have long-form content, event programming, that will always be there. It's like, for me, I think it's like everything else in life. There's the middle class of shows is slowly going to erode, and it's going to be the big, huge events and the short clips that are going to continue to grow, and the middle ground is a little bit more difficult.
So we've been watching the trend, obviously, as well over the years, and I'm seeing this kind of interesting middle thing show up on YouTube specifically. I don't know if you know Bryan Singer, who's the director of the X-Men and The Usual Suspects, and a few other movies that people remember. He put out a show in 24 parts last year on YouTube called H+, and it's a science fiction show that it's interesting from the point of view that the production values of that show are that of a motion picture or a very high-end television show. It's the first time I remember seeing that in short-form content, and he did it in a fashion that people could either consume it in video snacking, just over 2 or 3 minute episodes, or wait till the entire season was completed and view it in binge fashion. So watch the whole thing for like an hour and a half. So as we move forward, I think we're going to start to see a lot of experimentation, a lot of people trying to capture both markets. But Teddy's right. I mean, there's this odd divide going on between the small snacking video, which is really just using generated content for the most part, and television.
I know that the Bryan Singer series that you referred to got a lot of eyeballs. The question is, Bryan Singer probably gets upwards of $7-8 million to do a film. The economies are just not there for him to do this on a regular basis. It was about being a pioneer, and I'm not sure anybody made any money on that.
Oh, I can tell you that they did, but that might be okay because then we have the towing water first. And there's a lot of expectations that people have to reset, not only in Hollywood, but just in general. Britney Spears can't afford 3 jets anymore either, but it doesn't mean that people have stopped consuming music.
Yeah, that's actually one of the questions I wanted to ask you was basically since you come from a traditional Hollywood production background, and you basically come from the tech internet space, two circles merging together in the future. What are some possibilities?
Well, I think at the end of the day, content is always king. Technology is the enabler. When you no longer notice the technology, that's when it's absolutely at its best. So from a consumer standpoint, you don't care about technology. You just want it now, you want it fast, you want it easy and without any problems. The problem is how these legacies, these traditional methods, business models of having you sit in between scenes of a show for 90 seconds or 4 minutes at a time and expect you to pay attention to that. And for companies having virtual oligopolies and commercials are even difficult to be measured. I mean, it's amazing that in the United States that the broadcast networks have enjoyed these huge sums of money without having to actually prove ROI. That ratings were determined by sometimes samples of 3,000 people that determined the taste and the ad rates for every consumer goods company in the world. Now, you then look at the metrics that are provided on mobile and the internet, where the granularity is incredibly detailed. And then you have to say, if I'm an advertiser and I can go out and guarantee to reach the demographic that I want for a fraction of the cost that it does for a network television show, at the end of the day, something's got to change. As much as the networks want to hold on, the economics say, hey, you got to wake up and smell the coffee.
The other elephant in the room is that as you look through the digital lens of analytics to watch these shows get carried from production houses to users' laps, and you look at companies like Netflix that use large media distribution, and you see their numbers, are we now looking at the real numbers? And it's, the 3,000 households in suburban Ohio, were they telling us the real statistical sampling of what was going on this entire time, or has something else been masking it, and now we're actually seeing the numbers consuming, which will also change the economics of how this all works.
Yeah, that's actually another question I wanted to ask you, Rob. It's basically, online video is allowing companies a look at, user engagement, user habits, allowing them to analyze and data that, never been possible before. I was wondering if you could tell me how much of, working for a company like Revision 3 is all about data analysis, basically like a data company.
Well, we're definitely data-driven. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And in the same way that broadcast TV used to be driven by ratings, that we were just talking about, the optics that we have into that data vary from source to source. Information we get from one partner is not necessarily mapped to the same information we get from another partner. So it is actually a huge data issue, not only by the quantity of the information that's coming in, but just by the discrepancies between the various sources that we're seeing. So we do run a lot of analysis on that to even it all up and come up with a few metrics. But Teddy's right. I mean, we've got a view into this now that we never had before, and it gives us everything from engagement rates on the video to ad engagement rates to ad conversion rates, and it's amazing.
I want to give an example because with the television networks, there'll be 3.5, 4 minute of ad blocks. I know that because I know exactly how fast I have to skip through. But, and there's no feedback really for the networks. They just do it, and we don't know if somebody's watching or they're doing something else or they're on their computer. But, I had the pleasure of working with this company called Uyala. That's a video platform company with very sophisticated data analytics, real time, and close to real time. And what they found out was they optimized monetization. So in a country like Nigeria, they found that they could play 6.5 pre-rolls of 15 seconds each before viewer fatigue set in and they clicked off. And what an amazing figure and understanding of a culture and a territory to be able to optimize. So now they're working with, they're pretty huge right now. They work with ESPN, and they're doing that for them so that they can funnel from one video to the next in the most optimal way, and they know how much ad you'll tolerate. And I think that's pretty amazing. It's something the networks could never do.
The other thing that's happened is I'm going to make up a word here, so if you don't understand English, it's because I'm pointing out there. The entertainmentization of advertisements in general. We have a lot of different ad units that we use in front of all of our shows. The one that is the most popular are the ad reads that are done by our hosts. And in some cases, the ads themselves become the entertainment. We have a series of shows from a company called Triune Films, which is one of our partner production companies, and they literally produce these comedic 2-minute commercials for our sponsors that the sponsors love, the users love, and we see them being watched over and over again, as just as many times as some of the videos are.
So I think someone's agreement is that, we're here to talk about online television, that's obviously something you do, or, obviously that is your work, and Do you think it is possible though for online video to disrupt the traditional Hollywood production model?
There's a couple of interesting points to throw out there. So Super Bowl and Oscars and Grammys and all of that, that's probably not going to change for a while. Not only because they have a lot of content they can prevent you from doing it online, but because it is, I have Oscar parties first. There's just a communal feel to it, and there's something fun about watching it live and seeing the results before before the team win announcements happen on the other end. But one of the things that's very interesting here is there is a push to have video streamed in a live fashion over the internet, which presents its own set of problems because the internet, as we're currently using it and used to it, is not constructed with video in mind, or audio actually for that matter. So there are huge technical hurdles to having more than several thousand people watch a live stream at once. I mean, it's clearly happened in the U.S. It's the Victoria's Secret shows that pop over a million for reasons I can't quite understand. But the technology required to do that is massive and sort of navigates some of the problems on the internet. And it's not really a scalable solution. So some of that at a very basic level on internet packet level has to get straightened out before you can approach the kind of viewership that you're seeing in the Oscars live on the internet.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about basically, website companies developing their own video players. Because Kelly, I know you were telling me about kind of a way for people to, while they're watching something, they see something they like, they can tap on it and purchase it, and that's one potential monetization model. I was wondering if you could tell me a bit more about companies, a bit more about that, and then you could talk about companies that have done a good job creating their own video players.
Yeah, so everybody knows that, if you're watching a show and an ad comes on, maybe that ad has nothing to do with you. And it's frustrating. So obviously online advertisers now can target, they know about you through your cookies and your search histories, they can tailor something that's more targeted to what your needs might be. Well, in many respects, when you watch a show, you've already expressed interest in that subject matter. So we think at Randus with our Immerse platform that we want everything that you interact with to be contextual and related to that show itself. So if you're watching Friends and you want to know what is that sweater that Rachel is wearing, you should have the opportunity to click on it and find out what it is, even though somebody else may not have no interest. So it empowers the viewer. What we're doing is making what traditionally has been a lean-back experience into a lean-forward experience. And it not only is about e-commerce, but about engagement. So if I want to click on a character, and I didn't know, for instance, on the TV show Lost, which half the time I was lost, I could click on that character and find out what their storyline was leading up to this. And those kinds of contextual links that are accessible on demand, I think are highly valuable to the audience. And on top of that, when you then click on that link and there's an ad accompanying that, that's also contextual to the content and you, that ad buy and that click is 10 times more valuable. And that's a way we are trying to approach the mobile space by making everybody empowered to make their own choices.
They were all dead at the end. Sorry. It's been 3 years. So, we did a great job, I think. We built our own HTML5 player before it was probably wise to do that. Just close our eyes and look forward. And a lot of that was pushed and spurred on by the fact that Flash was dying, which was our previous player we wrote ourselves. And we had this dichotomy problem where everyone else was using Flash except for Jobs and iPad, which wasn't using Flash. So we had to pick one. I have a very small staff, and I couldn't support both Flash players and HTML5 players and any other player that you'd be interested in. So we just gambled, and we banked on the HTML5 player, and it turned out to be a good gamble. So that when mimicked what Flash players used to do. You could do full screen takeovers as much as HTML5 was not yet ready for. And now, of course, it's advanced even more. We just released a version last week that includes HLS streaming, so we can do live video streaming now through the HTML5 player, which wasn't possible before. So having our own player out there gives us certain controls over what it is we can and cannot do. We can control all sorts of analytics on the engagement that you can't on traditional players.
What are some companies that you think have done a good job with their own video players, your own company?
Us. And there's a lot of them. I mean, YouTube's player, I think, is actually pretty great. Vimeo, a lot of the YouTube like competitions. And they have foundational fun too in a lot of these cases. And they're nice because they allow the user to, without knowing it, pick the resolution of the screen based on the size of the window and the speed of their bandwidth, which is really what HLS is all about too. But it's really how the content looks. If you've done a very good job doing this, nobody knows that you have done this, which was Teddy's point earlier.
Teddy, you mentioned, you talked a bit about second screen initiatives, and there's a lot of buzz around that because one thing, like, it gets very clear that most of the time when people are watching something, they're also fiddling around with some other device. There's a potential for it to add to the area, especially with longer form content like Game of Thrones or Lost, that's extremely dense. And also, there's possibilities for monetization there, like we just talked about. I was wondering basically if the two of you could talk about your thoughts about second screen initiatives and if this is something that we could have someone who wants to see.
My approach is that I want to go back 1 second to the Super Bowl. And CBS did an amazing job because CBS earned millions and millions of dollars. But on top of the ad buys, they also had 10% more based upon their second screen. That's a heck of a lot of money. And the reason they did that, obviously, was to take advantage of, exploit all that behavior that's out there. So they had simultaneously going on the internet, things that were in sync with what's going on in the game, multiple camera angles. And I don't know what engagement numbers were, but advertisers obviously went for it because they know that's what the behavior is. My thing is right now, most of the second screen solutions are focusing in on the technology. Isn't this cool? Look at what you can do. We have to get beyond that, and what we're focusing in on Rambus is what is the content that you get to that makes it interactive? Are you getting to generic Wikipedia information, or are you providing something that's as interesting as the content you're watching in the first place? You have to drive that, and once companies invest in that added layer of information the same way they do in the primary information, then I think engagement numbers will go crazy. But right now, it's look at the trick. My iPad can be in sync with the TV, and here's a little trivia. And I think we will get beyond that, and the true test hasn't been written yet.
And that syncing doesn't work very well anymore. That's a little problem. We started noticing these trends when we were locked into our website. We ran on a lot of our live shows was basically a Twitter screen next to the window, and we were watching the engagement rates go up. So we knew that there was something there, but I agree with Teddy, there's a lot of technology companies out there that are just kind of going, hey, look at all this cool stuff, and nobody's using it for right or wrong, nobody's using it. There are some companies that are putting a lot of energy into trying to figure this out. In the United States, HBO is one of the premier paid-for television stations that produce content that approaches or sometimes surpasses movies. And they have they've recently, within the last year, put out a platform that they call HBO Go. And HBO Go, for people living in the United States, allows you on your mobile phone or your game station or whatever, in a very pretty fashion to catch up on any and all HBO content if you're an HBO subscriber. They have recently started experimenting with the Xbox in a very major way. Microsoft released a project called SmartGlass. And SmartGlass right now really just has 1 or 2 clients. One is HBO, and within that, there's really 1 or 2 shows. And it does the lock and step sync to the second screen, but it does it in a way that is very primeval. The connection is very secure. Most of the second screen experiences that you play with out there are listening to the audio track and trying to guess where the show is in the viewing cycle. In the case of HBO Go on the Xbox connected to Microsoft's SmartLabs, it knows literally to the millisecond where it is, which means that you can do things without guessing and people just look around. So there's some future there, but
Well, let me just say, you know, the HBO Go, anytime, anywhere, any device is fantastic, but it really illustrates the problems in the industry. When HBO is beholden to only you, the subscriber, because you're paying them, they are dedicated to delivering an uncompromised viewing experience. It's fantastic. If you have a viewer and a content company, and then you throw in an advertiser, then you have three people, three parties to make happy. And there's always going to be compromise in that respect. So we're all envious of HBO because they know at the end of the day, their content is king, but actually what tops the content is the viewer. And they're always thinking about the viewer. I think the broadcasters are not thinking about the viewer. They're thinking about, show me the money. The advertisers, we got to make them happy more than anything else.
this ties into a conversation about entrepreneurialism and just in general that we were having last night. If you're starting a company and your end goal is to make a ton of money, just go sell shoes. I mean, seriously. What you want to do is lock passionately into something that you think people care about and have a relationship with your users in a way that benefits them, that no one else can fill that need. And you'll get money. It'll come at the end of the game. And HBO is a great example of that. It is, as you said, it is one-to-one correspondence between the viewer and the company, and it shows.
That's actually, just in terms of new shows, I actually wanted to talk about Revision 3. For example, you have a lot of viewers, obviously, but at the same time, each of your shows, like, they're designed to appeal to a specific niche. That's one of the benefits of, online video content is that you can kind of develop a followership or a viewership for stuff that would never take off on traditional broadcasts. And for you, Teddy, I know that you work on a lot of pet projects. For example, like champion, like in terms of projects I have, for example, Asians in Hollywood, Asian Americans are pretty much underrepresented there, and you produce things like Babyface. And now you're working on a project about the Kim sisters.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody here is a K-pop fan, but the original, does anybody know who the Kim sisters are? Yeah, it's more people can program and say chants. Well, never mind. Anyways, so the Kim sisters were the original pioneers of K-pop back in the 60s. During the Korean War, they lost their home, they lost their father, they had to basically beg and sing to survive. And they were discovered while performing for American soldiers, they were discovered by somebody who took three girls who didn't speak English. They were, the oldest one was 17 at the time. They took them to Las Vegas, and they became some of the biggest stars in the world. They appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show 22 times. And that, at the time, Ed Sullivan Show was the most popular show in the U.S. They had a single that went to number 6 on Billboard. And all this happened in the heyday of Las Vegas. The problem is, all of you here in Korea who are K-pop fans never even heard about them. So I met the oldest sister, who's in her 70s now, and I promised that it's my dream, and to fulfill her dream, that people would hear her story and understand her pursuit of happiness, that her dream came true, and that hopefully it can inspire other people to go beyond their borders and beyond their comfort zone to dream big and achieve big. And if I'm not even Korean, but I embraced them with open arms because they were the ultimate underdogs. And they, for me, they're emblematic of Korea as a country.
Yeah, so that's actually one of the things I wanted to ask about, is that basically YouTube, a few years ago, was basically a place where people, who had maybe a jam, and, who wanted to write about something, they could develop this huge viewership. So I was wondering now, as kind of like online digital media becomes more and more companies are starting to try to figure out how you increase user engagement, how you monetize their content. How much room do you still think there is for people who have these kind of really niche interests, these passions, to go up and use it as a tool to get
Oh, there's always room. And it's the democratization of video that makes that true. The science you're referring to is called audience development. We make extensive use of it at Revision 3. We've got a whole department assigned to it, run by a very brilliant guy. And several years ago, when bloggers started to show up, there was a lot of disdain for them in the press and the media in general. And there's always the go-to thing, go-to wicked boy, I suppose. But what it did allow to happen is the democratization of somebody's written word. And it's happening again now in video. It happened in audio with podcasts and something. Now in video in an even bigger way. And to a certain extent, it doesn't matter to a lot of these people if they make money or not. They just want to be heard and seen and get their opinion out. And if they are popular and they're hitting a nerve somewhere along the way, they'll get popped up. And if they get popped up, democratization will come.
Could you tell me a bit about how you're going to use online to help against this? Or you said you were talking about using Kickstarter?
Yeah, one of the challenges is that when you're in Korea and a lot of Koreans think, oh, who's going to care about the Kim sisters? And when you're in Hollywood, you're like, well, they're Korean, and well, Americans and the rest of the world care about them. Well, I want to make people care about them. So my idea was possibly recruiting or starting a campaign on Kickstarter and recruiting K-pop fans who are also interested in helping to spread the word, and showing Hollywood and showing the establishment, the media establishment, that this story should be told and that there's an audience out there for it.
You couldn't have done that a couple years ago.
You guys will just a couple more questions and then we'll open up.
Okay, sure. So, one of the things I wanted to ask you was what advice do you have for Korean startups in the online entertainment and media space? What are the critical steps that these companies should take in those stages?
It depends on if you're doing content, if you're actually creating the method of delivery or the method of consumption. Get involved. There's a lot of gaps in the system right now. People live for their content, whatever you might think of that, and they want to consume it in different ways and in different platforms. And there's a lot of missing links between mobile and what you get on broadcast, what you can't get on broadcast, how that data gets analyzed, how you talk to somebody else who may be putting out ancillary content for you. There's a lot of work involved there, and it's beyond the creation of one or two apps on an iPhone. It's actually getting into the infrastructure of how this all works, which to me is very, very interesting here.
For me, growing up with Asian parents, we always learned, work hard, pay your dues, and follow the rules. For Korean entrepreneurs, I say follow advice number 1 and break number 2 and 3. You cannot follow the rules. You have to make your own rules. You have to break the chains that your parents have instilled upon you, the values that they have instilled upon you. If you wanted to listen to your parents, you would go work at a big company and draw a salary and work 6 days a week and go on that existence. But there's a reason you're going for this kind of risk profile. And if you're going to go all the way. Dream big. If you fall short of your dream, there's no shame in that. Failure is an everyday existence for a startup company. People say no to you all the time. Know when to listen and know when not to listen. But the most important thing, and I use this lesson from Hollywood because every movie is like a startup. Everybody's constantly saying no to you. That you just need to believe in yourself. You have to, sometimes ignorance is bliss. You know, if I knew what the challenges were back when I started in the business, I would have never done it. So I think you have to really reach and break the rules and get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, that's actually something I wanted to ask the two of you about, because the thing is, most startups are going to fail. You know, and I think, you know, I'm not Korean, I'm actually Taiwanese American, but one of the things I grew up with, as far as my Taiwanese background, is that, you know, you don't fail, and if you fail, let's talk about it, you know, but, you know, at the same time, like, there's a lot that you can learn from failure. So I was wondering if maybe both of you can maybe talk about one or two things that you failed at.
I have no feelings.
Or setbacks or challenges, maybe what you learned from that.
So a number of years ago, and she's right, by the way, and don't get discouraged, and learn from your failure and all that stuff that sounds like platitudes, but it's actually true. And you confront yourself in the process, and I've been blessed in where I had you know, spectacular successes, and I've also had some pretty spectacular failures. And I was involved in an early stage startup by the person that was the ex-CEO of Avid, Teddy will know. Avid is a video editor. It's one of the first digital video editors in existence, I think the first. And the next company that he started was to change the way computer graphics get inserted into live footage of television. And I worked on spaceships, and this was the hardest thing I've ever done. It involved you know, scanning images in from monocular cameras, making 3D models out of them, and bringing 3D, you know, the dinosaurs into it, and re-rendering the whole thing back out and shit like that. And when we got done, it actually worked. It took us 3 years. We weren't paying any freaking attention to the business model. So what happened at the end of that 3 years is it became cheaper to do things the old-fashioned way, which was cutting the dinosaur out of the computer graphic and inserting it in with Final Cut Pro, than it was to buy our system, which we had to sell at like $1 million a pop.
What about you, Teddy?
You know, we in Hollywood, we tend to bury our dead and don't look back. I like to talk about Pursuit of Happiness and Hitch, Charlie's Angels, My Girl, Indecent Proposal. But has anybody ever heard of First Night?
I have.
That was my movie. It was not a big success. Has anybody heard of Flashback? It was made, and it probably made less than $10 million in box office. I have many films under my belt, many of which I avoid talking about because they failed.
Yes, questions?
I'd love to hear, I know you guys have talked about kind of the intersection of technology and content. I'd just love to hear your thoughts on House of Cards, and you know, whether it's just kind of a gimmick or whether it actually really, the technology did impact the content, you know, that kind of stuff.
Well, I haven't seen it, okay, but I have an opinion about it. It's just like how HBO started and Showtime. They started out showing movies, but eventually you're beholden to somebody else, so you have to evolve. So Netflix is following the same model. Until they come up with The Sopranos or Sex and the City, they will always be beholden to somebody else. And all those studios who used to sell them movies are now keeping them themselves or selling them someplace else. So for me, it's about innovation out of necessity. It's not anything other than looking after your own long-term survival. Whether House of Cards is a hit or not a hit is irrelevant, because they need to do that. They need to make more shows like that. And in terms of technology play, I don't even think about technology when I think of a show like that.
So the interesting thing about House of Cards and the Arrested Development reboot and a bunch of other things that are going on now not sure the impact of this, felt really, except people outside the industry. But what's going on is they're cutting out the cable companies. They're cutting out the network channel. There is now a new channel for all producers and production people to go to. The importance of that can't be understated. It's kind of a big deal. And the show itself is like a Showtime show, it's like an HBO show. It's very, very high quality. My only question about it, and I get into arguments with people about this all the time, is Netflix's business model of releasing all 24 episodes at one time, or 22, or whatever their number is. Since Netflix gets their money from subscribers, it always just makes sense to me that they stretch it out over a number of months, so people just don't subscribe to watch the show, and then unsubscribe again. But they obviously know what they're doing. They're doing pretty well.
Hey guys, you guys talked about the media industry just starting to transform itself. Now, if you look at the different localities like the U.S. and Asia, Korea, China, I think there's different patterns of viewership, right? For example, I think Netflix is huge in the U.S., but Netflix is nowhere near here. Do you see separation because of the differences in culture, or do you eventually see a merging of the patterns in the viewership patterns?
Go after the lawyers. The reason that you are not seeing Netflix here has nothing to do with the technology. The reason that I can't watch Doctor Who on the BBC iPlayer is because I live in the United States, and which they'll never forgive me for that. But that all of it, every bit of it, has to do with licensing issues. There's nothing technological keeping that from happening. It is simply old world content rights from the 70s and 80s and 60s bleeding over into new technology, and they will have to change the way it works. There's just no way around it if they want to continue to produce them as they were producing before.
I think big data is the answer, Sage.
We unfortunately have to wrap up this really interesting conversation. Round of applause for our panelists. Rob came from San Francisco last night, and Teddy came from LA, so I'm sure they're jet lagged, but we really do appreciate it. All right, next up is Johnson Taylor. Come on up. So I'm going to put your bio up on the screen. 제가 말씀드렸듯이 이 친구 존슨 테일러가 굉장히 젊은 친구인데 많은 벌써 일을 했고요. 지금은 이제 제너럴 캐럴리스라는 굉장히 소프트웨어에서 큰 VC 인베스트먼트 하는 데서 일을 하고 있고 거기에 지금 매니징 디렉터로 있습니다. 그 먼저 번 잡에 있으면서 인스타그램 그다음에 트위터 를 발굴을 해서 거기에 이제 투자를 주도한 친구고요. 여기 찾아보시면은 지금 스탠퍼드 대학 나오고 시드니 유니버시티에서 나왔고 그리고 지금 존슨 테일러 이렇게 얼굴 보시면 가까이서 보시면 여기 멍이 나 있어요. 그거에 대해서 설명부터 듣고 시작하기로 하죠. So Jonathan, I was telling him about your eye, how you got it. It was startup related. So I think it's relevant to our discussion here. So why don't we start there, and then we can start the interview.
Actually, could I just get a sense how many people here are entrepreneurs, and how many want to be entrepreneurs, and the rest are investors, press. Yep. Okay. Perfect. Good job. Oh, we all are.
So basically. We were talking about your introduction earlier today. You said you're basically an ex-Googler and now you're just chilling.
Just chilling.
Just chilling.
Yeah, and then my day job is helping entrepreneurs build their businesses.
Yeah, but obviously, like ex-Googlers have a much different definition of chilling than most people do. Yeah. So I was basically, I wanted to ask because you were an early, first you were at Benchmark and then now you're at Palace, and you're one of the early investors in Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat. Snapchat, which are all, things that are kind of redefining social culture on
So if I just take a step back, what is investing in the consumer space? The way I look at it, it's about building society online. And we have an inevitable move to the digital realm. And what we want to do as entrepreneurs, as investors, as people in just any part that touches technology, any industry that touches technologies, we want to facilitate it so that we actually have a great society online. And part of that means we need to invest based on how people use technology, but we also want to invest and work on companies that are going to define what it means to have society online. So just to break that down, much like how in the offline world we have banks and we have railroads and we have highways, we need that online. Facebook, for example, is a utility. It's a distribution platform. That's pretty much like our postal service in the offline world. And you think about what Stripe, which is one of our companies, or PayPal, etc. These are companies that are building payments infrastructures online. When I look at my consumer investing back in the day, it was all around how you could use technology and provide that technology to bring what we call utility to a user. Because a lot of the technology was very new. And a lot of things that we couldn't do online that we could do offline, like pick up the phone and talk to someone. And so it was around bringing that technology online. That's why a lot of investments were really capitalizing on these really simple core utilities. And I'll say Twitter is one where it's mass communications. Instagram was one where it was photo communications. Now, these companies were built very differently from the companies that I think are going to be built in the future. Because those companies existed, relating back to the prior conversation, to the advertising-based world. And the advertising-based world is you build a consumer product that gets to what we call ubiquity. Everyone is using it. And then you monetize those users. You sell advertising against them. As we have now entered the world where technology is now consumerized, I think Teddy and Rob talk about it. Anyone can now build a technology company. Anyone can now have a YouTube channel, where in the past you needed to understand tech to do that. This means that there are a lot more products that are coming on board, and users have so much more choice. Which now means we are moving away from the ubiquity play, where you have one product that everyone uses, to now very specific products that you use because it works for you. The notion of quality has changed now. Much like in the TV world, in the past we looked at, everyone watched I Love Lucy. Now, it's very hard to find one TV show that everyone in the world is watching, anyone that has a TV is watching, because there are all these different channels. Same thing with consumer products. So Snapchat is one where, and that's why I hit my face, because they just got a lot of capital, and they built a new office, and they put a nice new glass door, and it was right by the beach. And I went to the office, and I was running down to the beach, and I didn't see the glass door, I smashed into it. I fell back, and I was passed out for like 10 minutes or something. But Snapchat is a company that is creating what I call very self-expressive content for communications. It is much like how we're in this room, or if I'm sitting down at dinner with Bernard and I'm talking to him, I know that I can be very expressive in my conversation because he's just going to hear it and he's not going to have a written record of it. It's not going to, I can say something about someone I don't like and it's not going to bite me in the ass, right? Or come back to haunt me. On the internet, everything lasts forever. But that's why Snapchat resonates, because it's a very human way of communicating. I can send a photo and it disappears over time.
I actually wanted to ask you about Snapchat because in a lot of the kind of like media coverage of it, I've noticed that people are very, well, there are a couple of trend, things emerged. They're very polarized about it, or they don't get it, period. A lot of people, the coverage of it was like, this is sexting that, basically. And a lot of it too was, people were like, why would you send a photo and then have it disappear? I mean, like, keep it. And also, the users of Snapchat are still a bit young, and a lot of them are in their teens. So, I thought it was interesting because to me, it kind of maybe marks the next generation divide and how people, generation gap and how people use the internet. So I was wondering basically, with the act that a lot of people, maybe just didn't seem to get, like, at what point did you know that it was something that would have traction that you would want to invest in?
So 2 points there. One is about the youth demographic, so the teenagers. The teenagers are what I call our oracles for consumer product because they're extremely fickle, the word of mouth is very strong, and they're very willing to try new product. This means that certain types of products do resonate with them. they are also the generation that is very much getting fatigued by the Facebook era. The era where all the product mechanisms created to keep them engaged on the product is based around, not always, but narcissism, insecurities, addiction mechanisms that in Silicon Valley we understand very well how to play that. But these users are getting fatigued from it. Now, they use Snapchat because it's very expressive, because they know it's not going to create a permanent history that's going to come back and haunt them when they're looking for a job. But more importantly, there was a 15-year-old girl that tweeted in the early days. She said, finally it's okay to take an ugly photo of myself. I can take a photo of this black guy and send it to my friend, and it's fine, because in 3 years I'm not going to see it again. Even in 1 week I'm not going to see it again. So young kids, that's why it resonated with them. The second point I want to make is to have a clear distinction with what Snapchat is. Snapchat is a communications platform. It's not a broadcast platform, it's not a self-expression blogging platform. It's communications. And so with that, communications is always a product that grows very much in a particular demographic because it grows very much through word of mouth. And so it does resonate with the younger kids. It is a communication tool. You cannot value it, or you cannot look at how it's going to be valuable the same way you look at how Instagram will be valuable, or could have been valuable.
I was wondering, last night you mentioned that you wanted your investors are comfortable in investing in a company through traction. I was wondering if you could basically, what do you look for, when you're looking at a company, what are the key benchmarks that you keep an eye on?
Yeah, so there are two areas that I look at. One is around the entrepreneur, and the other is around the product. So I'll be a bit philosophical here and just say that all of us here in this room are entrepreneurs. We all have a way that we want the world to be. Now, the question is, are we going to be the ones that take it there? And there are entrepreneurs that have a very clear sense of what they want the world to be, and they've built up the skills necessary to build product or to express themselves in a way that gets us there. And then there are other entrepreneurs that, chance upon a product that works. They've created something, and they found a way to iterate it into success. So if I would just step from that and say, if you just look at the product, the most important thing around product is engagement. It's around three key things. I always talk about utility, the engagement model, and the growth model. And they're all intertwined. And the best entrepreneurs understand these three things, and they know how to build into product. And so if I look at a product, I want to see that, especially in the US, because there's so many different products, the utility is very clear. When I download an app, it's very obvious to me what I'm using for. And then I want to see the engagement model. And this is where the numbers come into play. I want to see that a user is coming back on a daily basis or weekly basis, depending on what the product is. And they're starting to tell their friends about it, or there's a product mechanism that compels them to share with other people. Once you see those numbers trend up, active user engagement, you're looking sometimes at the number of times, we call it an unaided open app rate, number of times you actually open the app without a prompt, right, without a push. If you start to see that trend up, it's a very good sign. Most consumer investors would like to see user number growth. And that's also an important metric, but by the time you see that, it's usually too late. So you need to really understand what category the product is in and what you're looking for from engagement metrics. That's why I did have to make the distinction between Snapchat and some of the other products. And then on the other side, what I look at is the entrepreneur. And I was telling some folks this over dinner last night. There are some entrepreneurs where the product they create is just a means to an end. And so they're willing to throw away the product if it's not doing what they want it to do, even though it's seeing some success. Whereas you have other entrepreneurs that are building product, and it's succeeding, but you know that they are not willing to mess with that success. They don't know what the levers are. And short of giving an example, there are definitely products out there that you've all heard of that have grown very quickly and then just crashed down. Because the entrepreneur hasn't innovated enough, they haven't found a good engagement model, they aren't willing to sacrifice some of their existing users to take what they've learned and build a product towards their bigger vision.
Yeah, that's actually another thing that we were talking to you about last night was, what is the role of an investor in the development of a startup when it's in its early stages? Like, how involved should you be and what kind of involvement should that be?
Lessons learned is that the less you get involved in a company, the better it does, if you pick the entrepreneurs right. So I would say, as entrepreneurs, and a few of you that are here, make sure you have an investor that shares your ambition. He wants to see the world evolve into the same vision that you see the world in. And I think the biggest value at an early stage on the consumer side that an investor can do, can add, the value is really helping the entrepreneur understand what else is going on. What's the state of the art? What's happening in media? What's happening in communications? What's happening in the journalism world? Because all of these things do play in. All of these things touch consumers. And if I can add any value, it's usually at these early stages when I tell them, this is a macro world. This is what's going on. Use that to your advantage. This is what's changing about the ad market. This is not what's changing about the ad market. So that's really the value on the consumer side. On the enterprise side, and Serge can probably attest to it. Right now, a lot of his big issues is trying to be able to hone down on the sales cycle, trying to close the loop around what's ROI, and how do you actually prove to a customer like SK that, hey, my analytics is actually driving real business value. So a lot of that sales learning, a lot of the channel development, these are really the kinds of things that you can add as a value on the enterprise side. So it's really different depending on what vertical investment you're doing.
One of the things that you told me was that, even if a founding team has only like a few minutes to pitch, you can usually tell within that time how good their idea is just by the way they talk about it perhaps. I was wondering if you could probably tell me what you look for when you're screening founding teams, maybe give me a few examples from your investments of why you like the founders.
So just as context, we were talking about why I think this morning's pitch session was actually really good because it was 15 minutes and entrepreneurs could actually get into the product rather than just sell a vision. Versus a lot of other incubators where they only have 2 minutes to pitch their company. But the most important thing when you actually see an entrepreneur up on stage is to hear the passion in your voice for what you're building. That's all we care about for that 2 to 3 minute pitch. And then yes, you want to understand the product. You want to understand the market. You want to understand that he's actually rational about opportunity. These are the things that we look for. The one key thing that I always try to understand is whether he's able to aggregate a great team around him. Can that entrepreneur attract really smart people? Because if he's not able to do that, it means either his idea is not great enough, his capabilities are not great enough, because A+ players don't want to play with anyone that isn't A+. Or he's not passionate enough about it, because at this early stage, the only way you bring a team together is through sheer passion. That's pretty much what I look for.
Actually, wanted to, you knew the founders of Pinterest from the early days of the start. And since I'm a Pinterest, I'm always on it. I basically wanted to ask you, when you're observing them starting up the company, what did they do right? What did you like about them?
So when Ben was building the company, they had probably about 6,000 users, and I was talking to them, and they grew subsequently to about 50,000 users, which is nothing, right, for a web-based product. But what you could see, and I wrote a forum post about it actually, what you could see is that retailers were starting to want to put product on the platform. And diving into the numbers to understand why is because there was so much strong word of mouth about each particular item that was pinned. So you had the element where it created a very aspirational sentiment from users. The other thing was, because it was so much about broadcast and self-expression, you had a very strong growth model attached to it. And if I were to just look at that product, what it was at the time was a very simple utility. It allowed you to plug in any kind of content and push it out to your friends in a very aspirational, beautiful way. So when I wrote that core post, this was I think late 2010, I basically said, and this still holds true, any company that's able to provide a very core utility tends to do exceedingly well. And that's what they did well. Facebook provided a core utility, the social graph, and they did exceedingly well. So try to understand what is that core utility you're building, and do that exceedingly well, and you will do very well as a company. There are shifts right now happening in the consumer world, so it's important to understand what those shifts are, and I'll be happy to talk to anyone about that.
Yeah, so I actually wondered if you could talk briefly about what shifts you're seeing.
So the shifts you're seeing is a large one, this move away from mass consumed advertising models for monetization of consumer products. And advertising, you have two different camps. You have branded advertising and you have performance advertising. Google does very well in performance advertising. This means, like Teddy was saying, you look at content, you click on it, you buy, right? You can really measure the effect of it. Branded advertising is very different. Branded advertising is all about creating an aspirational notion. Now, all the platforms of the past, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you name it, they've tried to do branded advertising. A lot of them are good at performance advertising, but the money is all in branded advertising. And in order to drive branded advertising, they need to drive engagement. And so they have all these product mechanisms that make you click likes more, comment more, click on a new page, read the news feed. To sell branded ads, you need to have aspiration. The content, and Teddy mentioned it, the content that's generated on these platforms are typically low quality content. It's not the content that Hollywood creates, where you have very aspirational value there. We are shifting away from that because consumers are getting fatigued by the advertising-based model of product. They are willing to pay for product. The App Store, Apple has proven that. Users are willing to buy good quality software. And the same thing is going to be true because content is now going to drive audience aggregation. You're going to start to see people pay for high quality content coming out of Hollywood, or even high quality content coming out of platforms that can encourage creative people to build on those platforms. Once we see that happen, I think we're going to start to see a different kind of monetization model where it's not solely advertising, but it's where products and platforms are generating revenue directly for the creators that are building on top of that platform. And they're generating this directly from their subscribers. Whether it's subscription-based model, to Rob's point around Netflix, or whether it's paying per consumption. Each minute of video viewed, for instance. In the panel earlier, one of the guys was saying, technology needs to disappear. And in the media world, which is, content is king, in the media world, once the technology disappears and it becomes a utility, that's when the big shifts are going to happen.
I was wondering, I wanted to talk about a couple of general capital investments. Warby Parker and Airbnb. I feel like both have, they came in, they're very simple ideas, and these both kind of disrupted the industries they're in. Warby Parker, for example, made prescription eyewear affordable for a lot more people, and then Airbnb is completely kind of shifting the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could tell me about what the right time to invest in both these companies.
I can't relate to those, but really, there are different types of companies that can be built. There are companies that arbitrage inefficiencies in an existing industry, and there are companies that define a whole new industry. Warby Parker, Airbnb, right? Warby Parker took an eyeglass industry that was completely dysfunctional, and they found a way to verticalize it, create a product that's cheaper, create a direct-to-consumer mechanism so that they were not relying on all the industries that currently exist to push product into the hands of users. And they also capitalized on a very growing trend, the one around what we call B corporations, social good. And so that's what Warby Parker did. Airbnb defined a new industry. Airbnb created what we call the collaborative consumption space. And they're category defining leaders in that space. The notion is that young kids these days, or the new Gen Y, they are anti-ownership. Or not really anti-ownership, but they are leaning less towards ownership. The whole promise of the past around buying a home and owning it is getting lost on this generation. And so what the guys saw was, and ambition does grow over time, the guys basically saw an arbitrage opportunity, but an opportunity that was sitting at a big disruptive edge. And so they created the company, and what it's grown into a world where there are a whole bunch of clones that are taking resources that are available and repartitioning it. And that's really the disruption that's going on with Airbnb. When did we get to invest? Now, it's very, very brutal in the venture capital industry. It's super competitive. It seems like we are actually having a good time giving out capital, but it's so competitive to work with the best entrepreneurs because they get to choose who they want to work with. We got the chance to invest in Airbnb early, but it became so competitive that we kind of had to sit out of that round, and we came in at a much later round. Same thing happened with Warby Parker. Yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up.
I actually wanted to ask you, can you tell me about how the venture capital industry is changing?
So stuff like what SparkLabs is doing is I think phenomenal for the industry. You know, incubators when they first came on the scene, it sounded like they were trying to take business away from Series A investors, but that wasn't the case. It was actually a great thing because now as Series A investors, you've got a place that aggregated all the great deal flow, and you could just look at that one class. Take it one step further, and the stuff that I think Bernard and Jimmy and Anju, what they're doing here is really the crux of what an incubator should be, which is adding value in a meaningful way to these startups. Because in every ecosystem that hasn't already been mature, the biggest value you can add is increasing what I call the institutionalized knowledge. The fact that there are entrepreneurs that have done it before, and they're teaching the entrepreneurs that are attempting to do it. In a lot of new ecosystems, you don't have that cycle. You know, everyone's learning on their own, and it takes them a much longer time to get smart about what works and what doesn't work. What are the right philosophies, what aren't? How do you build up a team? How do you treat your employees? If you have a situation like what these guys are doing and facilitating the entrepreneurs with access to people that have gone through all of this pain before, they get to grow up really, really fast. And that's why being in Silicon Valley, when you start a business now, you already have an 18-month acceleration. Because just when sitting around dinner with people in the Valley, you're having all these conversations around what works, what doesn't work. You don't need to go to a conference. You don't need to pay to go to an event. You don't need to schedule a meeting. It happens all around you. And that's the ecosystem that these guys are building. The incubator model, I think, is a great one for the venture industry. I think the venture industry just needs to think about what its role really is. You know, as far as this new era, not just in the consumer space, but in the enterprise space, where companies can grow so rapidly because distribution can't be taken for granted, but it's a much easier thing than before because of the social web, because of the prevalence of the internet, because of all these mechanisms we now understand.
Actually, you know, one of the things that you talked about earlier, you know, that we were talking about earlier, is that you look for founders who have an idea of, like, you know, what direction they want to take their engagement in. But I was wondering if you could actually talk to me about obstacles that your investments have, obstacles or setbacks that they kind of bumped into while scaling up. If you could tell me a bit about that.
Sorry, give me a sec. So entrepreneurs, I mean, it's a tough job, right? I'm glad I'm not doing it. It's a really tough thing to do, to start a business, because every day is up and down. You know, one day you get good news, the next day it's the worst news you could possibly get. You know, like, why don't you shoot yourself every day? When you wake up, you're stressed all the time. You have all these people depending on you. You know, if you're asking around what are the setbacks an entrepreneur has, it's everything. There's not a single thing that can go right. You know, if it can go wrong, there's a high chance it will go wrong. And it's just, someone said never give up. You know, and that's really what an entrepreneur should be thinking about is, I have this business I want to build, and I'm just not going to give up because things are punching you down all the time. As far as actual practical challenges an entrepreneur has, if I were to relate it to the venture world, entrepreneurs have to deal with gathering resources for their companies, and that's capital. And unfortunately, in the venture capital industry, we make entrepreneurs jump through different kinds of hoops in order to get that capital. And it's not necessarily the kinds of hoops that are best suited for the business, for the operations of the business. You know, we sometimes make demands on entrepreneurs to show certain kinds of user numbers when that's not what's important at the point in time. So for entrepreneurs, dealing with investors that don't really get the business, I think is a very challenging thing. For entrepreneurs to scale the team, hire the right people, figuring out how to structure the organization. These are all challenges that, you know, every entrepreneur will have to face. The right strategic approach. Who else is doing what? It's hard to really answer because there's so much that an entrepreneur needs to face that I can't give one common thread throughout an entire portfolio of things they have to deal with.
I think I was wondering, maybe you can talk about one of the big pieces of news like a few months back was when Facebook ran off and built Oak, and people were afraid that, people were like, is Facebook trying to send out a message to developers that if you don't work with us, we could knock off, we could clone your product. And people were afraid, Poke with Facebook behind it would actually supersede Snapchat. I was wondering if you could tell me a bit about how Snapchat, how the development team responded to that.
Yeah, I mean, I saw all the emails. No, the founding team basically said, look, it doesn't matter because it's a different product. We are innovating in a different way. Facebook is a company that requires a stream of users that come onto its platform. They require engagement on the platform. Communication applications are the highest engaging products out there because it's very much back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. People open it on a daily basis. It also owns a demographic that Facebook finds it needs to do more to get into its platform. The 11 to 21-year-old teenagers or young people. And so when it looked at the mechanism, it seemed pretty clear, it's a very simple utility. We have distribution, let's build it. But there's a social contract that every company makes with its user once it launches. Much like how Mimibox has a social contract with its user, Facebook had a social contract with its user, and it's hard to change that. Snapchat's social contract with the user was, this is fun, this is ephemeral, it will disappear, and we are extremely lightweight, and we are off of the Facebook platform. And that social contract is what made it succeed. And so for Facebook to try to mimic that social contract, when its social contract with the user is, we are your social graph, we put you in touch with people that you haven't seen in a while, and we keep you up to date on what they're doing in their lives. That's a very different contract. And I won't even go into the privacy contracts that they have with users, right? So it was not something that the team did worry about. I think as far as Facebook putting out a message, I don't know. I don't know what they were thinking with that. There could be a lot more strategic insight that they had. Maybe they're just experimenting with it. But I can't speak to that.
All right, we're out of time. But if you have one, I think we may have maybe one last question, and then I'm going to open up to the floor. Yeah, we're good? Yeah, just one more.
Actually, yeah, I wanted to ask about Chloe and Isabel and Heyday, because, obviously the e-commerce spaces are really, really crowded. What about those two startups caught your eye?
Heyday is very much like Step. So who's the entrepreneur behind Step? I think it's a brilliant idea. I think what's going on with Heyday, and I'll just, they're pre-launch, so I'm not going to talk too much about it, but the basic notion is that everybody does want to keep a journal. The problem is that creating a journal has a lot of friction. You need to be creative, you need to have something to say every day, and the basic notion about a journal should be that it's frictionless. Now, if I were to just relate to the presentation we saw earlier, I think the guys have done a brilliant job articulating these between Instagram moments, right? It's not the moments that you want to brag and share with your friends, stuff for yourself. It's your own life. And that's an important piece of content that even the Google Glass team is thinking about. But in creating a product that allows someone to create a journal, you have to think about what are the friction points. And to create a new product that people have to open up every time they want to capture content is likely not good enough, in my sense. And I have this quote that I actually borrowed from Pharrell. If anyone listens to Pharrell. And he basically says, you cannot change the standard if your solution is seen as an alternative. It needs to be so much better. It needs to be so much better. And there are already products out there that are trying to be your camera. They're trying to be your blog. They're trying to be your phone book. And if you just create another product that's doing that, it's not good enough. What Heyday is doing is saying, there are all these products out there. All I want to do is aggregate that content. So you're not opening my app to capture a new piece of, a new photo, or log in a new coffee chat, etc. You're opening it and you're seeing everything that you've already generated with your phone, through your camera roll, through your phone book, through your Foursquare check-ins, etc. And it's just aggregating. So it becomes frictionless journaling. And that's what's exciting about it. A lot more of the business case that we can talk about, hopefully after they launch. On Chloe and Isabel, it's not a commerce company. We as a firm do a lot of commerce. Warby Parker, Honest Company, Rue La La, you companies in the commerce space that experiment with all different business models. Chloe and Isabel is a platforms company because what they're doing is they're, in my opinion, defining what e-commerce 3.0 is. And e-commerce 2.0, or e-commerce 1.0 was, you know, Amazon and eBay, etc., where you knew what you wanted and you went out and bought it. And they facilitated you finding the product. Commerce 2.0 was about discovery and curation, bringing the aspirational aspect. And they did that in combination with aggregating an audience. So they help you find product, and they gave that product an audience. Commerce 3.0 is the next wave, and that's really about how do you bring authenticity to the sales process? How do you make sure you have a product, you can put it online, and instead of someone just discovering it, they are understanding really what it's about. They resonate with the brand, they resonate with its use case. There's a person that's actually selling that product. So where everything else was about purchasing, discovery, curation, buying, Commerce 3.0 is about selling. And that's what Chloe and Isabel is building a software platform to do. They are starting with jewelry because jewelry has the highest margins. 80% gross margins for an e-commerce company is almost unheard of. And that's what they're starting with.
Alright, that's great. 저기 질문 있으신 분들이요. 여기 지금 마이크가 들어갈 텐데. Anybody have questions? Alright, David, to you again.
I just have one question. If there's kind of one or two things that entrepreneurs do that like really frustrate you every time, like you know they do it, could you maybe just list one or two things that? Like every time you see it, you're just like, why are you doing that?
If they don't do enough research. I think it all boils down to that. Because, and we don't know a lot. I mean, every day we have people smarter than us coming into the office and telling us about their industry. We're learning so much about something they've spent a lifetime learning. But the research I'm talking about is not just about that particular product and industry they're building, but how it fits into the macro. And you know, for what it's worth, we do see companies across the board, consumer, enterprise, education, you name it. And sometimes we try to help the entrepreneur think through how that product fits in the future world. You know, the entrepreneurs that have a very strong sense of an industry and are building companies that do the arbitrage, like I say, that's usually very straightforward. But the ones that I really want to work with are the ones that are trying to define a new industry, really disrupt something. And they have a particular way they see the future, and they have a particular approach. But sometimes we see how that approach could hit pitfalls. And the most frustrating thing is when you give an entrepreneur the correct advice, not that we always give correct advice, because sometimes they are much better than we are, but when you give them correct advice and they don't take it, because you know, they don't take the time to dwell on whether it's our own learnings or you know our experience. And that's frustrating because it sets the company back. It sets the company back 6 months, a year. Sometimes you tell them, raise a little bit more now. Don't raise that little because you're going to hit a few roadblocks. And they don't do it. And a year later, they say, you're right. And now we have to raise. We have to raise at a triple valuation, or we have to you know, be short on hiring staff in order to keep our runway longer. And that stuff is so costly. You know, that stuff is so costly. That's what we're paid to help advise on. It's how do you avoid the stupid mistakes? How do you avoid the stuff that is programmatic? Because the stuff that you are doing as an entrepreneur, the real important stuff is the stuff that's really going to define the industry. It's stuff that we don't know. It's the vision that you guys are defining. But the stuff that we have seen happen over and over again, listen to us. You know, that's really the frustration.
Yeah, the entrepreneurs always underestimate the amount of money that they need. That's always true. Okay.
Yeah, Jonathan, just a quick question, and I think you partly addressed this before in saying that SparkLabs here can add some value, which is great, but I really want to get your genuine take on the situation. If Silicon Valley is the gold standard for being at the dinner table every night and having an advisor happen to be at the table and maybe an investor and maybe other people who have failed, so you're really getting much more of a connected feel. In Asia, from what you can observe, how disconnected or inefficient is the contact between great startup company executives and investors, never mind just advisors? Is there a huge disconnect? It seems inefficient to me, but what do you think versus Silicon Valley's standard?
I think a lot of the investors that are in Asia are entrepreneurs, to put it very simply. And so even connecting investors and entrepreneurs is not going to amount very much. I think connecting experienced entrepreneurs and successful entrepreneurs with new entrepreneurs, that's where the value is. And the reason there's a disconnect is because there just aren't that many of them that are as invested in the startup ecosystem as they should be. You know, there aren't that many tech entrepreneurs in Asia. You have the big wins, but we haven't created an environment where, Handy was saying, the pay it forward mentality. You know, in the Valley, it's always about execution. Ideas are dime a dozen. But there's a paranoia that I've at least felt here in Asia around ideas because people don't really want to share them. People underestimate the work that goes into bringing an idea to life, and so they think the idea is everything. Idea is just a small part of it. A few of the guys talked about it last night too. I don't think the disconnect cannot be bridged. I think it does take time for the ecosystem to be built up. It does take time for the capital to churn through the system in a smart way, for the smart capital to be churned through the system. Bringing people from, whether it's the Valley or whether entrepreneurs in China and in the rest of Korea, other parts of Asia, together with these young entrepreneurs, like what the SparkLabs guys are doing, I think that goes a long way. But we need to do more of it. And Bernard was sharing me an example, or not an example, but a short story around an entrepreneur sometimes gets connected with the mentors, but they don't necessarily follow up, or they don't feel like they have a right to take up the time of the mentors. So why I feel bad, you know? And as a lab, we can structurally change that. You know, we can't encourage the entrepreneurs. It's hard to encourage them to change the way they think about things. But you can structurally create situations where, yeah, you get the mentors together, you get the entrepreneurs together. Hell, you could even send the founders of each class over to Silicon Valley for a week immersive program and just hang out with all the different people over there. There are ways to structurally create that dynamic until it happens naturally. So I agree there's a disconnect. I don't think it's a huge disconnect. I think it's a disconnect that with efforts like this, just take time.
All right, I think we have time for one more question.
예, 말씀 잘 들었습니다. 최근에 이제 한국이나 미국에서 이제 뭐 벤처기업 같은 곳에 관심을 갖고 있는 좀 기업들이 좀 어디가 있는지 좀 궁금하고요. 혹시 뭐 한국이나 이런 곳에 한국이나 아시아에 투자할 계획을 갖고 있는지 올해 정도나 그런 것들 좀 궁금하고요. 두 번째는 아까 좀 질문과 좀 약간 비슷하기도 한데 실리콘밸리가 이제 인큐베이팅하고 뭐 투자, 엑시트 뭐 이런 벤처 생태계가 이렇게 잘 갖춰져 있다고 그렇게 흔히 얘기를 많이 하더라고요. 근데 한국이나 뭐 아시아나 이런 곳이 그런 실리콘밸리하고 좀 생태계에서 좀 다른 점은 좀 어떤 것이고, 그리고 한국이나 이런 국내가 벤처 생태계가 좀 더 활성화되게 하기 위해서는 좀 어떤 변화가 있으면 좋을 것인지 그런 거 좀 말씀 좀 부탁드리겠습니다.
So for the first question, I think the first question was around who's interested in investing in Asia. And I think Hanju asked me the same thing last night, and one of the guys asked me the same thing. And there really is, foolishly or not, less of an interest in US funds to invest in Asia. The strategy they all take on is, this one is called cherry picking. You wait for the ones that break out and you invest in them. Right? So there aren't that many US-based funds that I know of that invest specifically in Asia, and the Asia strategy. Because there's a lot of capital in Asia, and it's hard to compete with that capital in Asia because that capital is very cheap, and it pays up. So, it does lead into the notion that entrepreneurs sometimes underestimate the value that an investor can really bring, especially if they've got experience, and they just want to take the cheapest capital available. So to answer that question, I really don't have a good response to it because I don't know of many folks that focus here. There are definitely a lot of funds that focus on in Korea because they are either Korean funds, started by Koreans, or they are sponsored by a lot of the conglomerates. The second question around the ecosystem, and that's, you brought up a really good point around the exit. The exit is really what defines a local ecosystem. If you think about Israel, there's a lot of innovation that comes out of Israel, but absolutely no billion-dollar exits have come out of Israel and stayed in Israel. All the companies that have been huge venture successes that came out of Israel had to move to the States or had to move out of Israel. And at this point, I think the exit ecosystem in Korea, and I don't know much about it, so I can't really say, but it feels like it's mainly governed by the large companies. And that's why the capital flowing from these companies are very strategic based, in my opinion. And that needs to change. You need to have more funds that are focused on ROI. And when you're focused on ROI, you're willing to let these companies grow in an environment where they get the best resources. And that could be China, it could be New York, it could be Silicon Valley. It depends on what that company needs. If they need great engineers, that's where they grow. If they need access to an exit market, whether it's M&A, that's where they should go. Korea as a market for someone to do an M&A is probably still a little bit too small. And its public markets, I'm just not familiar with. I have not seen any strong, I haven't heard any buzz around companies going public on a Korean exchange. But this is just my ignorance. So I'd love to hear.
사실이고요. 그래서 해외로 같이 나가자는 게 저희들 아까 말씀드렸던 부탁입니다. So I agree with that, and so we can't wait until the ecosystem builds because So I think the thing to do is just let's go out, and SparkLabs is there to help with that process. So anyway, so I think that was great. I think there's a lot of insightful tidbits and golden nuggets. Thank you very much. And round of applause for Jonathan Taylor and Okay, can I have the SparkLab partners come up? Jay, Ali, can you come up here? 오늘 이렇게 정말 좋은 시간, 이렇게 어려운 시간을 내주신 여러분께 정말 감사드리고요. 오늘 저희들도 first demo 데이를 하면서 걱정도 많았고, exciting도 했고, 그리고 우리 특히 오늘의 주인공들, 오늘 데모를 너무너무 잘 준비해주신 우리 여기 스타트업 분들에게 정말 감사의 말씀 드리고요. 지금 여기 끝나고 여기서 한 30분에서 1시간 동안 저희들은 여기서 서 있으면서 그냥 네트워킹 시간을 가질 거거든요. 그러니까 서로들도 이렇게 서로 만나 뵈시고 여기 이제 중간중간에 보면은 이제 기자분들도 계시고 또 인베스트도 하시는 분들도 계시고 또 서로 또 스타트업 하시니까 서로 명함도 주고 받으시고 또 스파크랩에 대해서 궁금하신 점이 있으시면은 여기에 서 있는 사람들이 다 우리 스파크랩의 파트너입니다. 저기 김호민 대표, 지미. Okay. And then Ali from Indonesia and Singapore, and Jay, you've met before, and Bernard, 저를 포함해서 그냥 부담 없이 그냥 와주셔서 말씀을 나누시면 되겠고요. 다시 한번. 저기 바로 그냥 여기서 나가시면은 거기서 저희들이 서 있고 거기서 네트워킹을 하겠습니다. 다시 한번 우리 데모데이를 해주신 회사들을 한번 나열해보겠습니다. SparkLabs, Big Data, other companies, Five Rocks, and WePlanet, Step. 메리윈드는 저희들이 이번에 발표를 보유한 친구들이고요. 근데 그게 너무 잘 돼 있어가지고 약간 지금 민감하게 지금 니고시에이션 상황이기 때문에 그런 거기 때문에 다른 오해는 갖지 말아주시기 바랍니다. 그 다음에 미니박스, subscription-based e-commerce, as well as finding your true inner beauty. 그 다음에 Norie, adaptive learning입니다. 예, 수고하셨습니다. 감사합니다.
이따 다 할 거지?